I was riding through the drive-thru. He just looked like somebody. I could see it in his eyes. Like, you look like you hate it here. You get tired of working at this job, you want to make some real money, call me. And lo and behold, he called me, and we started getting money like that. So this is what you got to do. When people come to the back cash and you taking their card, swipe it through this box. Every time you swipe a card through this box, I'm going to give you $10. They walk in the store with the stolen credit cards and swipe them at the self-checkout lane. But now what they be swiping is gift cards. So they go to the little gift card rack, they swipe at the checkout, boom, they get a receipt. Now they can keep going, do another card, boom, another one. It's going on one last big trip. This was going to be my last trip. So I had 1,000 cards of all the $1,000 a piece cards. But now that we saying this, it feels like I need to say, for the record, the only things I can say, the things that are on legal proceedings, other than that, everything is for entertainment purposes. And this podcast, this is all, is based on the true story.
Hey, this is Matt Cox, and I am here with Javar, and Javar's got a super interesting story about credit card fraud and counterfeiting, and I've already heard it once. Really interesting. Can't wait for you to hear it. Check out the interview.
I grew up on 6 miles of Mark Twain, the street we grew up on.
Right.
A 2-parent household, mother and
in what city? What city?
In Detroit.
Yeah, that's okay. Because there's probably lots of 6 miles. I was saying, there's got to be other streets called 6 Mile. You know, I know you're like, no, it's the iconic one that everybody knows. Hear you. Still,
the real name is McNichols. So if anybody want to,
real name of the street,
yeah, we call it 6 miles, but it's really McNichols.
I always assumed they called it like there was a street called like 6 Mile.
It is a 5 mile, 6 mile, 7 mile, 8 mile, but okay, it's also McNichols.
Oh, okay. All right, I got it.
You go a little bit further down, it might say this, but on this part it say this.
Got it. Okay. Detroit, 6 Mile. All right.
Yeah, grew up there, went to school there, elementary and middle school I went there, and then when my dad died, I ended up going to Canton and went to school there. But how did you back it up a little bit? Well, he died, what the whole story is.
Right.
I was at home, I'm upstairs playing the game. I hear my mama calling me, she yelling my name. I come downstairs, I see her pinned up against the wall, her and my dad fighting, that's kind of something that's common occurrence in my circumstances, so it's not like something I wouldn't be used to seeing.
Right.
So
how old were you?
I was probably, I was 11. So I was 11 at the time. And, looking back, I used to always wonder, like, why didn't she just leave that type of situation? Like my dad didn't stay with us. We had our own place and he just came around when he came around. Not to say he was a bad person or anything, but I just used to wonder, like, why put up with it if you didn't have to? And I mean, it kind of put me in a weird situation. Like, now I got to be the one to come help you, and you putting me in this type of situation. That's how I kind of saw it.
Well, it's, people get themselves, first of all, love. How many times have you said, oh, I wouldn't do that? Oh, your girl did what? I would never put up with that. And then, honestly, you've put up with it. Like there's people go back to love and they stay in relationships out of love and convenience and what they know a lot of times, for ridiculous reasons, but, in the moment, it seems right. So I can see how some women just don't leave, even though and it's a common thing. So it's not like it's, oh, that's, in some way your fault. Lots of women don't leave. Lots of people just put up with abuse. So there's got to be a reason, a legitimate reason.
That's definitely true. I should ask her what was her reason, but
it's probably got to boil down to like, I love them.
With looking back on it, I know she wouldn't have did the same thing twice. It's just, back then everybody was making bad decisions. When you're young and dumb, you just make that bad decisions. I've made my own.
Yeah. So you were 11. Sorry.
So I was 11, I'm seeing them fighting. So she ended up telling me I'm leaving with him. So I get my book bag, put my stuff in there. I go outside. I'm walking to the car where I'm by the car. So I turn around because the car door locked. So I turn around. I see her and him. They arguing. He said something slick, I guess. So she threw a pan at him. But in her other hand, she got a knife. So he running up. I guess you could guess he was about to smack her. You can't really say what he would have did. But so in her defense, she not meaning to stab him, but she like kind of trying to shield herself, and the knife went into his heart. So then he run into the car, stab. At first, you could see it in her face. She didn't even know she stabbed him, but as he getting more to the car and yelling it, then it's like the panic on her face, and she running down to the car. He sat in the driver's seat, the eyes rolled back in his head. She came, sat on his lap, and told me to go back in the house and drove him all the way to the hospital while I'm sitting on his lap. So it's like, I can't really see how, I can see how somebody might find it as murder or like a worse thing, but I just see it as like kind of more so an accident. And it's like, it's nobody's fault because of the circumstances.
Manslaughter. It's like,
yeah. And that's what she ended up getting. Like at first it was a murder they was trying to hit her with, but then they ended up reducing it to manslaughter. She got, I think, like 8 years of probation. And
how much? Any jail time?
She sat in the county for a year, but she didn't go to prison. So in the county for a year while she was fighting the case. And then while she was fighting the case, I was staying at my auntie's house. I was staying in the basement. And I think that experience is really what made me the person who I am today. So it's really a hard thing because it's like I wouldn't be who I am today without all of that. But if I could go back in time, I would change it all.
Right.
No. It's just a bad situation. But sitting in the basement, and then when she did get out, she ended up staying in the basement with me too. So we stand in the basement, and we stayed there for about a year. And that's just so she could get herself on her feet. But I'm still in middle school at the time. So and then everything went from me having all the nice stuff because, he sold drugs. So we living kind of good at the time. So it went from that to me not having the newest stuff, not having the newest clothes, the best clothes. So went from, say, Polo to USPA type situation. So then, you go to school and you get teased for wearing the Fila products instead of the real ones. And it just put a hunger in you to never go back to that type of situation.
Right.
I don't really blame her for that, but I think really it's kind of a good thing too, because even if I didn't use it for a negative thing, I can always use that for a positive thing too. And a lot of people, like, for example, you might come from people that come from a more affluent background, they might not have that hunger and it might not be as important for them to make sure they got it. But people that do come from it just make us get up every day and go get it. But,
one generation makes money and then the next generation spends it. It's pretty common because because the ones that make it were hungry, and then their kids grow up, in comfort, and they don't have that. They don't have that drive. If they have enough money, they can maybe maintain it. But by the next generation, it's gone. Like very seldom do families have enough money that they can maintain it for generations. I mean, there are those out there, but
like the Rockefellers,
right? But very few. You could probably name all of them, on both your hands.
But for that reason, it's just I don't see myself as the victim in those type of situations.
Right.
So I know it might come off to people like, I tell the story and it's kind of cold, like, hey, he died. That's it. But it's just like, I see the bigger purpose in everything. You got to try to look at life like that. Everything got a bigger purpose. If I could change it, I would, but you can't change everything.
Yeah. Well, it's like when people say, do you regret going to jail? Of course I regret. Like, what are you talking about? Would I change things? Of course I would,
But you did get benefit from it.
Right. But I definitely learned about it. I did the best in the situation once I realized you're going to be down a little bit. I did the best I could,
You was down for quite a bit.
Yeah. Like almost 13 years. I always say 13 but I just shy of 13.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then even looking at my sentence, it's like at the time, you feeling like you
it's
really
forever.
Yeah.
It is.
But looking at it in comparison to everybody else, you'd be like, yeah, that wasn't nothing.
Right.
I'd do it again if I had to instead of that,
Yeah, when you're sitting, I would sit at a table, guys at the media, and I'm like, man, I got 26 years, bro. Like I'll be 60 when I get out with good time. And they'd look at me and they'd say, I ain't never getting out. Like I've been down 20 and I'm never leaving. And you're like, oh wow, maybe I should shut my mouth. Maybe I should stop complaining. Nobody wants to hear.
You got to be grateful for what you got.
Yeah. My cousin told me that probably the first week I was there. He said, don't complain. Nobody wants to hear about you complaining. Guys with life sentences and guys that got 40 years, and some guy that brought a gun to a $10, crack sale who ended up with 30 years. He don't want to hear about your complaints. And I was like, all right, you're right. And he's right. He was right.
Fair enough.
People are avoiding you. But so your mom's living with you, you're in the basement, you're struggling
in the basement. And, my cousins stay there too. I stayed with two of my cousins and my auntie. So I feel like that brought me closer to my cousins. And, at the time, they were into stuff that I wasn't into yet. So that'll come into play later. But for the time being, all we really did was make music in the basement. So, that kind of like brought us all together. And from there, though, even from music, I feel like that brought me into more crime too. Just because, for example, I was shooting a music video one day. It's one of our bigger music videos, but everybody in the video had thousands of dollars. They coming racked up the stacks of money. But at the time, I got a video company, but I'm not having stacks of money. So I'm seeing that, and I just had to pull one of my cousins to the side, like, you gonna have to tell me what this is. I'm trying to do it, you feel me? So he ended up telling me what we doing is called jugging. So he break it down to me. What we do, we make an Instagram page. We'd take somebody's likeness, like, for example, your likeness. Say we wanted to make the Matt Cox Instagram page.
Okay.
We'd change the name. Maybe it's Money Making Cox.
Right.
So we upload some of your pictures, follow a whole bunch of people, get more followers, build the page up, and then start posting stuff like, hey, you want to flip your money, turn 100 into $1,000, 500 into $5,000. So people would see that and they'd be like, yeah, I want to flip my 100. Sounds good. Sounds too good to be true, and it is, but they're not seeing it like that. So when they get in contact with the page, then we hit them with okay, so this is what you got to do. You got to go to Rite Aid, Walgreens, CVS, any of these stores, and you got to go pick up a vanilla reload card. So when they went and picked up the vanilla reload at the store, they had to load a certain amount, whichever amount they wanted to flip. So say they wanted to flip 100 into 1,000. We'd tell them, you do that, you send us back 20% of whatever we flip it to. So say we turn it into 1,000, you send us 200 for the job, you keep 800.
Right.
Whole time, when they load the money onto the card and send us the information from the card,
you're gone.
We load it on our card, hit the ATM, and we gone. It's over with.
Then what do? You spin them when a week later when they're like, where's my money? Where's my money? You start spinning them.
They hit you that day.
They think it's going to happen. Right, man.
When you telling people like something that's too good to be true, they already expect, like, it don't seem real for them. So they own you already every second of the process. They want to stay on the phone the whole time. But you would do that and just walk to the ATM the whole time. Like, yep, I'm doing it right now. Put the card in the ATM, withdraw, and it's over with. You can hang up on them, block them, and never talk to them again. So that gave me my first taste of scamming, my first taste of, I say, even like having a couple of dollars, and I'm still in school. So I'm going to school, now I got a couple $1,000s on me. So, no, you see the popularity shift from really being really kind of like lame in school to being the guy at school, you know, and the type of people I was with. Honestly, I kind of look at that as a good thing too, because I was around some people that just really wasn't for me at the time too, in like a different way. But the people I ended up being with, you know, I'm still cool with them to this day. Like we done made thousands of dollars together, and then people see you with the money. Now they want to make money with you. So people reaching out to me, hey, how can we do what you doing? So what I do with them, I have them, hey, all you got to do is I give them the play, then give them a card. So I put a card in maybe somebody else's name, or pay somebody else to put the card in their name, like maybe another friend at school. Okay, I need you to do this. I give you $200 just to put in the card in your name, but a serve card that we can load the vanillas on. And then another person, you might want to be the jugger. Like you might have talking skills and be able to talk to people. So I give you the card, and then every, say, $1,000 that get on the card, now I get 500, you get 500, and now I still got my pages. I'm doing what I do, and it's just it made it a bigger thing than what it was.
So I feel like I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, take your time. Go ahead.
Did you ever see the movie Empire?
Empire? I'm not sure what happened in
it. It's got I'm gonna butcher this dude's name, bro. Okay, like John Ligavacho or something. He's a thin Puerto Rican guy. Anyway, what he did, he was a drug dealer, and the name of his area and his drug was called Empire. And they had the city kind of broken up, or this one area broken up between him and a few other guys. And his girlfriend was going to college, and she ended up befriending another girl at school. Well, that girlfriend's boyfriend was he was like a stockbroker. And so she sees the other girl, the drug dealer's girlfriend's got like a nice rock. She's got a nice diamond pendant. You know, you could tell she's got money, but she's Puerto Rican, and you talk to her and she felt like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is new money. Or even if it's not new money, I don't think it mattered. But the point is that she befriends her. She tells her that her boyfriend's throwing, you know, she basically says, well, where'd you get this? And she's like, oh, my boyfriend. Where'd you get this? Oh, my boyfriend. Oh, he must do really well. Yeah, he does pretty well. She kind of figures out he's a drug dealer. So she invites her to a party and the boyfriend to a party. They go to a party in like Manhattan or something, right? Like they're not even used to coming in this area. They go there, they're at the party, they're like, wow, they're mixing with, you know, like, you know, upper middle class, you know, rich people or whatever. And he befriends the rich guy, the stockbroker befriends him and ends up saying, you know, it lets him in on, hey, well, here's what I do. He's got kind of like an inside track on different stocks and different portfolios, and he does this and he does that. And he's like, how do I get in on this? How do I get in on this? And so he gives him like a little taste, like, hey, you give me, you know, give me like 300,000, gives him 300,000 in cash.
Right.
And then whatever it is, a month and a half later, keep in mind, they're going on vacation together. They're hanging out. They're friends. Of course, it's his money. He doesn't realize he's taking me on vacation with my money. So they're hanging out. They're going to parties. They're going to dinner. And then a few months later, he's like, oh, by the way, I got that check for you. And he's like, what? He's like, yeah, come by my office. So he goes by his office. Office is in downtown, like walks in, and it's just massive. Like, it's like, wow, this dude's rolling. And he says, hey, I got that thing, you know, out of your 300,000, turned it into 700,000 in 2 months. He's like, you did this in 2 months. He's like, yeah. He goes to give him the check. And he's like, man, can we do this again? He goes, well, I got another deal that I'm working on. You know, I could let you in on it, but honestly, it's a lot more money. Like, I can roll the 700,000. Keep in mind, they're sitting there with a check. All he's got is a check.
I see it already.
He's like, all you got is a check. No, it's what he says is, I can take the check and I could redeposit it into the next thing that I'm doing, the next, you know, whatever, the next raise. Maybe it's a raise. Maybe he's just insider trading. You never really know what it is. It has something to do with Wall Street. So the guy goes, well, he said, I can, but the minimum you have to put in is like 3 million. And he's like, wow, man. He's like, yeah, I know. He's like, so you got to 700,000, so I only have to come up with 2.3 million. He's like, right. Yeah. And he said, I can do it. Give me a couple weeks. And he's like, all right, bro, I mean, honestly, we're on a timetable. You got to have it in by the end of the month. 2 weeks, bro, 2 weeks. Okay, I got you. He goes and borrows from everybody he knows, including the plug. Which he's like, look, man, I've been selling for you for 20 years. I need $2 million. And they give him like 2 million, plus he gets another 300,000, goes, pulls all his money, or maybe it's $1 million he pulls. I don't know what the breakdown is. Point is, he goes in with $2.3 million and gives him that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, a week goes by. They're supposed to go to dinner or something. They call. He's not answering. Call again, not answering. Finally, he goes by his office, and she's like, hey, is, Jimmy here? And the receptionist is like, who? Jimmy. She's like, I'm not sure. Does he rent here? And yeah, this is his office. And she's like, no, this is a temp office. It's like a virtual office. You can rent rooms, you can rent places. And he had thought he owned the whole thing.
Right.
This is where he works, but really he just rented a conference room. And they have these everywhere. I used to rent them all the time. They're called, the ones I used to rent were called HQ.
Mm-hmm.
You'd go up there, you say, hey, is Matt there? And the receptionist knows you're coming. And sure, hold on, let me get Mr. Cox. And she'll call you, and you're just sitting in an empty room now. You come out, they think it's a great scam. Oh yeah, hold on, let's go let's go in the conference room. Jennifer, can you get us some coffee? Sure, what would you like, Mr. Cox? It's like she knows you, but she doesn't. You rented it for the day. So anyway, so she's like, I don't know who that guy is. I don't know who he was. So then he goes to his condo. Condo's cleaned out. There's a real estate person there saying, oh, are you here for the open house? He's like, well, where's Jimmy? She's like, who? Oh, the old owner. Yeah, he moved out like a week ago. Are you interested in renting it? He can't find. So he eventually finds a guy. Like it doesn't end well, but for anybody involved, but it is a great movie, bro. Great. It's the same. It's that kind of a thing on a, you'd love that. I'm going to send you the trailer. You'll go, I think I own that.
That's my type. That's like a Bernie Madoff type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but Bernie Madoff, nobody did like Bernie Madoff. He did it forever, but
that's a different level. Like that's $40 billion. That's way different.
This guy still got a couple million, and who knows how many people he was doing this with.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. He just stopped at the one person.
Yeah,
but imagine him telling 10 of his friends, and then it's the same thing. That's
what I'm saying. You don't know. You never really find out how many people this guy and his girlfriend were working. Because that's all she's doing. She's going out. She's the roper. She's roping people in. And think about it. If you got $500,000 sitting in the bank and you're a full-time scammer, and this is what you do, you could stay in an area for 6 months. You can get $4 or $5 million for sure, and then you just disappear. It just so happens at the end of the whole thing, the drug dealer tracks him down. It's not a good situation, and of course he lost the plug's money, so the plug is now looking for him. Bro, it's so good. I'm gonna send this to you. You're gonna be like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's my type of movie right there.
So I'm sorry, right? I'm sorry. Tell me. So you're still jigging. How old are you at this point?
I don't know the number, but I know like I'm just starting high school, or maybe, probably like around 9th grade, probably, or maybe middle school going into high school.
Okay,
it's around that.
So middle school, high school, walking around with a couple $1,000s in your pocket.
Right.
Yeah, you're basically at high school. You're basically the man.
It was going this year. Like I went and got my first car. It wasn't much, but it's a little Saturn. I'm feeling good. Ain't nobody else got no car, so I'm
right.
And that I'm riding around. Really ain't even got no license yet. I'm with the hood, just doing it.
What does your mom think you're doing?
Because I already shot videos too. So she think the videos is going better than it was before.
Okay.
With the videos was still going, but it was like,
but not like that.
Yeah. That's like you put a 10 on it. Videos I was shooting, I started off shooting $50 a video. So it didn't take me 100 videos to make 5,000.
Right.
It's crazy. moral of the story, you know, we was doing good. So, but we took that and then we kind of increased it too, because, you know, my other cousins, the ones I was growing up with, staying with at the time when I was in the basement, they had their own thing going on. So they wasn't jugging, but they had a better route. They was swiping. So I had to learn about, you know, okay, so what's this? So I go to them like, you know, I need to figure this out. Now it's like the same type of situation. I came in with my stack of money and they coming in with their stack of money. That stack bigger. I'm trying to figure out what's in that stack. How do I get there? So I ask, and that's the only thing good about being in a team or like a generalized group. People that put you hip to what's going on. It's not necessarily we even got to do it together, but even just sharing the knowledge is worth everything, you know?
Right.
So he was at a point where he was kind of getting out of it or just taking a break because he had like some legal troubles going on or whatever. So he put me in a position to learn everything so I could kind of take over putting the numbers together for him. So he telling me like, okay, this is the site we get everything from. This is how we put it together. You slide the card through the box to write the cards and all that type of information. He showing me
explain that.
How to write the card.
Well, you just went straight, you said swiping.
Okay. So what did he?
Not everybody knows what swiping. The guy that works at Tire Kingdom may not know what swiping means.
Yeah, so you know, whenever I do that, just let me know. But
all right.
So he telling me, you know, first of all, I had to go see what it was first anyway. So I learned how to be the driver, which is how I learned how they were swiping. So, you know, I'd go take them to a Myers, and what they'd do is they'd walk in the store with the stolen credit cards and swipe them at the self-checkout lane. But now what they'd be swiping is gift cards. So they'd go to the little gift card rack. You know, it's hundreds of gift cards up there. They'd get the Visa, MasterCard gift cards. They'd load between 100 and 500 on the gift card and swipe or pay for it was the same thing as swiping basically. So they swipe at the checkout, boom, they get a receipt. Now they can keep going, do another card, boom, another one, because there's only so many Myers in the state.
Right. So you know where they're getting the information to buy the card from?
Yep. He showed me the site that was getting the information to buy the card from too. At the time, it was arrestcator.cc. So they go on there, you know, or the site it's like you go on the page, it's a login, you log in, make one, and then you see dumps, you see, which is the credit card information. You see CVV, which is the different type of credit card information that you'll use online. And they got like a wholesale option and all of that type of stuff, like checkouts, and it's like an Amazon for credit card information.
Right.
So,
and this isn't like on the dark web or anything. This is just normal. This
is the clear web.
Oh, okay.
Like they got dark web sites too, but we didn't even get into that yet. We still in the clear web.
Okay.
So they get that information, write it on the card. Now writing on the card, that process is you get a reader writer, which he has showed me where to get it from, and I ordered that in.
Right.
So we sat down at the table and he did the first one in front of him. Okay, this is what you do. You take the card, the piece of plastic, you load the numbers up on the screen, like it come with a software, and all the software is 3 boxes, track 1, track 2, and track 3. On every card, it's at least a track 1 and 2.
Right.
So all you need for the transaction is track 2. You don't even need track 1. Track 1 is really the name. So if you take that off, the name don't even print out on the receipt. So we just load the track 2 up, copy it, paste it in the track 2 box, swipe the card through the reader writer. That's it. The process is over just like that.
Now you got a credit card that might have an open balance of $3,000. It might have an open balance of $20,000. Like,
right.
And then you just go in the store and you go get gift cards and you use that credit card, stolen information on that credit card to buy. You know, put $500 on this gift card, $500 on this gift card, $500 until it just stops working. But now you got the gift cards with $500.
Right. And then they take them gift cards, you know, it's a plug that cash out the gift cards. So you could take them 10,000, 50,000 worth of gift cards, so you cash you out the same day. So all they did was they had a little business. So they had legal purchases, people coming in and buying items from them. And then they had people coming in with gift cards. So what they'd do, they'd mix the purchases together. So they'd sell a fake item, like a fake code for an item that never existed. So to the bank, it looks like they're selling this item.
Right.
But for the real, it's not no item. So it's basically money laundering where they purchase the stuff from themselves.
That never went anywhere. Yeah, that was never in existence. So hey, I sold 4 pair of blue jeans and 2 t-shirts and a pair of tennis shoes for $495, including tax. You run that through, but you never bought anything. So now you can legally tell the IRS, I got this money and here's a little bit of taxes. And then you could tell the IRS how much the blue jeans cost and everything. And I didn't make much money, but the truth is you just made what, $400 or $500. So,
yeah. And even though they was paying out 85% of the money and the credit card fees was probably 5%, and they kept 10, they doing hundreds of thousands a week. So it's like they making the money back, not even just off us. It's other people that scam in the city too. And we all see each other pulling up at the spot together. Like it's like a known thing around the city, just where you go to turn in.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure they was doing good. And like, they in the better cars than everybody else that's up there. But
I mean, the nice thing about that is that eventually a whole team gets busted and they tell the FBI, and the FBI shows up and says, this is what's involved. They can go, what? You mean these people are using stolen credit cards?
And that happened. Like they got raided multiple times, but they still to this day run what they run.
That's crazy. Like you're telling me people are coming in here with stolen credit? Oh my gosh. Thank God you guys are here.
Yeah. It's like, and you could cut them out really and do it yourself, but you would really need a business to do it, because when you try to do it yourself and you don't have real purchases coming in, like with real credit and debit cards, they just gonna close the account out and lock your money up, and you won't see the money again.
Right.
Like I imagine you could.
Sorry, I was gonna say, I've known people who did stuff like they set up like an eBay account and they just went out and bought certain types of items. Like they stuck with buying, let's say just like, purses, nice, decent, $500 purses or something. And then they would put them on eBay and they'd sell them at a 30% discount or whatever it was. And they sell them, and it's more work.
Definitely more work.
So if you're like,
you got to wait for the item to sell, then you're taking a bigger chunk of the money out. eBay got their fees. eBay can lock your money up.
And you don't know, who knows how long it's going to take to sell the purse.
Right.
It's not like everything moves. Right. It's not like everything moves right away. It could be sitting there for 2 months. You don't know.
Yeah. When you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of material and you still got to go on the next run, it's like, you can't really sit on it.
Yeah.
And if you do, you're really putting yourself at risk the longer you sit on it, because then you get raided, you got $100,000 worth of merchandise at your house. It look even worse. But where was we in the making of it?
Yeah, he kind of explains to you how it's going. First you were driving, and then he he incrementally gave you like a little more piece, and then a little of the information, a little bit more.
Yeah, so he easing me into the process of basically taking over for him. But in that process, I wanted to do my own thing too. So I noticed on the site where we bought the reader writer from, and nowadays you can get all this stuff from Amazon, but back then it was like a real site we went to, and it was a weird guy you called on the phone, and he was kind of like, didn't want to sell it to you, but he did still. So I see on the site, it's a different item, like a little card reader, like the size of like your thumb. So I asked him like, hey, what's this? Like, why don't we be getting these instead of the big reader writers? He like, cause that one just read the card information and don't write it. Like, that's good if you got somebody that work at McDonald's or something that swipe the card. So he telling me this, I register it like, yeah, this sounds like what I need to be doing. Like why would I go to the website and get some cards that might work, might not work, when I can go here and get it and it definitely worked.
Definitely worked. They just bought a Big Mac.
Right. And I can get it for a lower price. The site might sell a card to you. You might get one for $10, but you might get one for $50. You might get one for $100, depending on what the card is. $100 cards don't be working. Like, they got the most security on it. You buy a black card, it's like, you really got to put a lot of effort into cracking that card.
Right.
You got to go behind it, buy the profile to match it, the social security number, birthday, and all that. And then you got to do like social engineering. It's a lot of work when you're trying to crack a black card or something of that caliber.
Yeah, because if this person uses that card all the time at 6 different locations, and then suddenly you're 15 miles away using it somewhere where he's never used it, and they have 10 years worth of history, then that software is going to say, wait a second, what's he doing shopping here? Like, he never buys at this area, doesn't go into that area, never bought here before. And so they'll
triangulate everything. So they know, definitely. Like, it all goes into the fraud risk score. If it's something he ain't never bought, and then if it's over a certain amount, they're going to call him anyway. Like, you can get around that if you take over the phone account first. But at the time, we not knowing none of that. So we just stayed away from all of those type of cards. And I saw that as a better route. So I ended up getting some of them. But before I even get to that, I get to start trying to do my own routes. So, I buy my first couple 10 cards off the site, and he buy hundreds of cards at a time. I'm buying like a 10 batch, I need to test it out.
Baby stuff.
I'm going out of town, making nothing. I'm taking people out, still got to pay them, didn't make nothing. Now I'm spending the money from jugging on rentals and drivers and swiping people and not making nothing, still having to pay out. So I'm losing money now, but I see it working, so it's like I can never really give up on it.
Right.
So eventually I find this girl I went to school with. So I kind of break it down to her like, hey, she see us getting money already from what we was doing. So she already into whatever, just the same way we had people jugging for us. Now I'm just breaking down something new to you. Okay, so all you got to do, you work at Wendy's or McDonald's. Okay, so this is what you got to do. When people come to the back cash and you taking their card, swipe it through this box. Every time you swipe a card through this box, I'm going to give you $10. If you do 100 cards a week, you're going to make $1,000 a week. And coming from somebody that's making really more with me than you making at your job.
Oh, yeah.
Especially as a kid. And then she feeling like she making a lot of money, but I'm taking them same 100 cards. And now I'm going out of town making $10,000 a trip. Because now every one of these, or most of them at least, are going to work.
Right.
Especially we going around that same area as the McDonald's. I can go to that Meyer up the street and almost everything gonna work. Unless a person just out of money in their bank account or something.
Right.
But before we even got there again, I messed up. So I had my first box. I gave it to her. She go get 100 cards, around that amount. I see one card that didn't look right. And everybody that didn't had a little reader of this type then probably did the same mistake. I tried to delete the one card. It deleted all 100 cards. So she looking for her money. I didn't spend all the money on these bad trips. This was about to be the bounce back real quick. And I got nothing. So I tried to explain it to her, she not having none of that. So then it's like I had to really bounce back into jugging for a minute. I had to wait like a month before I could really get back into it. And so that's kind of like the ups and downs with scamming. Like, you might be rich one day, you might be broke the next day. It just will come with it. So I take that little time, find somebody new. And this through my other people. He knew a girl that also worked there. I think it was like Coldstone. It was like it's somewhere random. So he had her, and she got, I think, maybe 20 cards. It wasn't a lot. McDonald's, you going to see a lot of people a day through back half.
Right.
People keep coming. Coldstone, not as many. But, so what happened? So we took that batch. So he get 10 cards, I get 10 cards. Now I got to split it like that with him, and we still pay the girl. But those 10 cards brought us all the way back to life.
Right. They were solid. All were solid.
1,000. And the girl, she got 200. So 100 from both of us, and that put us all the way back in the game. So now I can take that, and I wouldn't start finding different workers, because now I got a proof of concept. So now when I'm explaining it to people, it's coming from a place of I know what I'm talking about. Like, listen,
right.
This is what it is. So I find people at McDonald's in Canton, McDonald's in Detroit, Sterling Heights, all type of places, like all around the state.
Right.
So not everybody got a box. So
How do you, what do you mean you like, how do you,
some people I went to school with, other
Okay.
people like I might, for the person in Detroit, for example, I was riding through the drive-through. He just looked like somebody, I could see it in his eyes. Like, you look like you hate it here. So I cut into him like, hey, you get tired of working at this job, you want to make some real money, call me. And lo and behold, he called me and we started getting money like that.
Right.
Granted, he ended up being like a terrible worker in the end, but started out, he was good too. He was bringing back 100 cars. He was really like in poverty. Like, I thought grew up bad. He grew up terrible. I'm pulling up to where his place is. It's nothing on the street. Like everybody over there is poor. It's like 2 houses. It's a tree fell on one of the houses. It's terrible over there. But he started getting his first bit of money. He started going crazy. He's spending more money than me. And I'm thinking, how, but he ended up later down the line trying to steal the box from me. And he just didn't have a password. It's like, how, it didn't make sense. And every box come with a password, but he couldn't get in it. So he just went
help
in the box.
Some people you just can't help.
Yeah, it's like, why you even do this to yourself?
Right.
And he ended up getting indicted for trying to rob a bank. He could have
Not a master criminal.
And making money.
Right. Not a master criminal.
Yeah, he was terrible. He was too greedy. That was his problem. But in the meantime, I did start spending more money too. I upgraded my car. I went from Saturn. And then what happened to the Saturn, I was at a video shoot, and this is why I stopped shooting videos. After the video shoot, I'm sitting there counting the money, and somebody just shot the car up while I'm sitting in the car. It's me and my people, and they shoot the car up. So, we spin around or whatever and leave. But it's like, I really got to get away from that, because now I'm getting a bigger face in the city, a lot going on between us, because of the music and everything that's going on with it.
So the music, the problem with the music is that it's also intertwined with gang rivalry, or like why, like mortgage brokers aren't shooting each other up.
Definitely. So, well, because, it's not even necessarily something I might have did, but it might be something one of my people did. But we all tied together.
Right.
So somebody might not be able to catch them, but he saw me.
And just said,
like, and it's a lot of occurrences of that. Like, I done got shot at in movies. I done had people try to book me for a shoot and set me up, line me up like that. So I was always just with me.
Did you get shot?
I ended up getting shot after I got out of prison, but before prison, I got shot at many a times, never got shot. God was always with me. And for whatever reason, I was just blessed. Like, I done had somebody book me for a shoot. It was raining, dark out at night. I pull up. It didn't seem right to me, but I had my gun on me at the time too. So this is after maybe 2 other shootouts. So, I get my first gun. So I'm walking up and I'm thinking, I'm just paranoid. So they take me to the back like, okay, we want to shoot the video on the back, but it's not making sense to me. It's raining and it's cold outside. It's Detroit. It's freezing. Y'all standing outside waiting for me in the cold. So then you want to go shoot in the back where it's no lights at. That makes no sense. So we going back there. I'm clutching just because it don't seem right to me. So they just take off running into the back, into like the field. So I up, but they start shooting too. It's like somebody else. As we walking through the drive-through, not the drive-through, the driveway, they cut behind the house.
Right.
I'm still in the driveway, but somebody else behind the fence in the backyard, and they start shooting through the driveway.
At you.
Now, me and them shooting at each other, and I'm ducking behind the garbage can, and it's just, it's that type of situation.
Yeah, but you have no idea why they're shooting at you?
No idea why. It's just, to this day, I still don't know why. But it just, that type of stuff happened, like, on a regular basis, for whatever reason. Well, it's money going into that. It's money going into, I'm buying new cars. I'm buying jewelry now. Like I got these glasses right here, for example. These $7,000 with the diamonds in them. But I had 3 other pair of these. Every time, like for the pair I had around there, that time it was $5,000 because the diamonds and it was all cheaper back then, pre-pandemic, and like we young, it's a long time ago.
Right.
It's the same exact thing. But even with those, just to show you how much money was coming in but leaving out, it ended up being a raid on one of the houses we was at, and my car had stayed there while we went out of town. They took my car, and I'm losing that and the glasses. Somebody ended up breaking in the car, stealing that, and they took everything out of the house that we had too. So any money in there was gone, any pills in there was gone, any guns in there was gone, everything in there was gone. And on top of that, I got to pay for a lawyer. So it's just like money leaving from all different sides as much as it's coming in. So
you didn't try and get your car back?
I did. I hired the lawyer.
Okay.
And I ended up getting the car back, but it was a treacherous journey to get the car back. Like, they really didn't want to give it to me. They trying to figure out who shot who outside, but I really wasn't there. You can't say I was there, My car was there in the driveway, but I wasn't. And they took like 3 different cars. They took mine. I had an Audi at the time. They took my people car. He had a Corvette. And somebody else's car, he had something, I don't remember what he had, but it's all like good cars. They took them all. But that's a good little side story. When I went up there to get my car, I see my ex-girlfriend dad. He a police officer. He was a detective. So I'm not knowing at the time he got a problem with me, but I'm trying to get my car back. I'm looking at him like, hey, kind of look out, we ain't leave off on bad terms. Like, why not? But he heard everything. Like, he came in to hear the story from the other cops and then just left out. I'm like, that was kind of weird. So I ended up talking to his daughter again, and she told me he hate me because I guess he found out we was in his house sleeping together or whatever. But we young, so where else we gonna sleep together at?
Right.
But it's just a little crazy stuff like that going on. So that, and my other people, they end up getting their cars back way before me. I think it's because of that. He just blocked my car because he had a little grudge against me, but
So do you have anybody working for you? Is it still just you, or you got a whole?
I got a lot of people working for me at the time, but it ended up switching around too. We ended up leaving the boxes alone because it kind of got hot. The more cars we got, the more it kind of triangulated on those places. Like, okay,
right,
1,000 cars from this McDonald's then got used at Myers for this type of fraud. We need to go see what that is. So I guess the feds look into it. They get the video surveillance from the places, and they press all the workers. So the workers, some of them cracking, some of them not. But even the ones that did crack, they not really giving my real name for me to have anything to, like, negative consequences.
Right.
They making up little stories to each other about who telling, and some of the workers said I was telling, the other one said the other workers was telling, and it's like a big thing, like, So somebody, I called them because, it's time for me to get the box. But nobody answered. So I ended up having to get in contact with somebody else who was like a mutual associate to get in contact with them. And then they let me know, like, hey, it's hot right now. Like, and then the person I got in contact with, he like, I thought you was telling. That's why I ain't been answering your phone calls, because old girl had said you was telling. So I talked to old girl, and she telling me that he telling, and they all just blaming it in like a little circle of blame guy.
But why are they think it's hot? Because the authorities showed up and started questioning them.
They took him to jail, but they ended up only getting probation for it in the end. But they came, arrested them with the evidence was the camera. They had them on camera swiping the cars through the box.
Okay. Well, yeah, they're done.
Yeah, but they didn't. It's like, and we all kids, so nobody really getting no real time. At most we like 17 at the time. So they go do their little probation, and I just got to find a different route. This is not working. This is hot. The money's slowing down. This is like one of them cycles of scamming. Be up and down. This is a down period. So it's like everything happening at the same time. You know, we got the raids going on where we losing money because of this and the more so like negative aspects of rapping, and we losing money because of the scam stuff going through one of its cycles. But another good thing about being in the group, information, it passed through. So somebody else found a being on the site that just worked, and the being, you know, that's a bank identification number. So that's the first 6 numbers on a credit card. That's what's going to determine the security on the card. So he found one with just super low security. So, and it's a new site too. It was jstash.bazaar. So that's what site we on. So we on there. And everybody is buying these cards from this bank. Everybody is making thousands off this. Like every car hitting for $1,000 now. So we go from making cars that was hitting for $100 at a piece to $1,000. So now we making 10 times on the 10 times from jugging. So it went from hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars to tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
So it's like every time something bad happened, something good just kept us going. Like we could have been stopped if we didn't have so many people around us. Like you can say the negative aspects of having so many people around, like with all the shootouts and stuff, but it kept money coming in because somebody always knew something. And then we go try it and it worked, you know, and everybody benefited from it.
Right.
So we go, now we making money off that. Now, I say this is around the time I start investing more into it. Like I'm getting deeper into scamming because I got more money to play with. Now I'm spending maybe $5,000 setting up a trip now. Like I might be sending cars to different states with workers in every car, and we getting money now. Like the game has changed. We investing in the music. All the money, it's like, and people see us getting money, it all work out. So what would I say was the next thing chronologically? I think the chip, that's what happened. The next downturn in the cycle was the chip got introduced, and now you got to stick it in 3 times to make a transaction work. So a lot of our people at the time stopped getting money, but we just changed the game again. So now we using the same site, but a different being. And this being worked much differently. And this what made us have to change the way everything worked. And it was good for the group, but bad for the people at the head. Like I started making less money, but the people under me was making more money because they had to work more. So now I got to send people to Kroger instead of Meijer, for example. So the thing about Kroger, they'll let you swipe at the self-checkout the same as the other ones, but you can only buy on the gift card. It has to be a purchase of $99 and under. So a $100 gift card is out the window. You got to either do a 50 and a 25 or a 50. And just the process of taking off the back of the card and doing the 25 was just too time consuming. So we just doing $50 at a time, from $1,000 all the way back down to 50. But we made up for that in volume. So we going from state to state to state. So I got people, and I do 3 states at a time. Most likely in the Midwest, just because that's where I'm at. So we do either Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, maybe down to Kentucky or Pennsylvania, and we just rotate. So if I'm in Michigan, one person in Ohio, another person in Illinois or Indiana, we'd switch up. Next time I'm in Indiana and he in Michigan, and just do that 3 times or over the course of a week. And then over the course of that week, we've been in hit every store in these states at least 3 times.
Okay.
But that burnt out so quick because now they own you as soon as you walk in the door, and they remember you from the last time. Like, hey, this guy came in, boy, $1,000 in gift cards and $50 transactions. He must be stopped. So now we have to run out the stores. They calling the police on us. People going to jail. It's like, it got a lot harder to be a scammer at this type of time.
Yeah, well, they probably pull your photos off the surveillance camera. They probably got a list of like, hey, there's these 6 people that are involved.
Some stores have facial recognition too. Like I had people that went to jail because of that. I had a lot of people went to jail around this time. It's more of an expense because you just got to bond the people out. Like you got to be a good person to work for too. It's like if you work at Chrysler, they gonna give you insurance. Yeah. I'm gonna give you the insurance of you go to jail. I'm gonna make sure you get out and you good.
Right.
So it's just, part of the gang. Then another cycle of it. So we getting to the kind of the end of it. We was going on one last big trip. This was gonna be my last trip. So I had 1,000 cards, or all the $1,000 a piece cards. But if you're gonna do that type of carding, you got to do more than just, because at the time, like when I was doing the 50s, I took it so low tech. I was using the blank cards, not even the $100 gift cards. Because, some people, they'd take the gift cards and just swipe the mag strip and put the card information on that. But with the amount of cards we was having to do, like every card needed 100 cards.
Right.
So we had just started ordering the blanks off of eBay. Like blank pieces of plastic with nothing on the face and just a bag strip. And we using those in the store. So it's terribly hot. You get caught with this, you can't really explain it. It's not real,
right.
So
that's my employer ID.
Yeah,
my employer card officer.
And I done had people really explain it to people and get away with it too. Like this is a special security card. It has no information on it, so credit card thieves can't get me. And people be buying stuff like that. Like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But
doesn't. But okay.
So, but doing the $1,000 transactions or transactions higher than that, you gotta put the name on the card. Like they want to see all the information. They gonna check the receipt. They gonna do all of that.
Right.
So, I went and bought the printer to match the cards. It's I think at the time it was like $5,000 for the printer. The HDP $5,000. I bought the embosser to punch the numbers up on every card. I bought the tipper to make the numbers that you punched up, make those silver. And with the same printer, I can make the IDs too. So we did 100 cards all the way punched up. Like out of the 1,000, I had 100 ready, and then every state was just gonna punch up another 100. But my problem was I made all 1,000 cards. Like I wrote them up already. I had them pre-wrote. That ended up being a big problem for me. But it's going good though. Like the transactions going through, and we still buy gift cards too. So we on kind of like a rap tour and a scam tour. We going from state to state for the rapping, but on like stop 2, we didn't really make it far with the rest of the group. Me and one of my co-defendants, we got busted. We go in the mire, walk all the way to the back, pick up a gift card. We pay for it. I showing them the Canada ID. They like, okay, good. Clarence Burton, okay, yeah. Everybody get out. We had a good little run, but we go back inside because one person wanted the book bag. So we go back in to get this book bag. I say, okay, if we going back in, we might as well hit it again. So the rest of us, we all get out and go back in there too. And we get some more gift cards. We load up, hit it twice. So as I'm walking out, I see a cop car coming. I look behind me. I see the secret shopper looking at me. Like she playing it off like she looking down at the phone, but it's one of those phones nobody would have. It's a giant brick phone.
Right.
That's how you know when the secret shopper following you. And she got on the hatch looking down, acting like she just inconspicuous, but not inconspicuous. It's my fault for not seeing it sooner, but she pointing at me, the cop pulled down on me, like, hey, stop. Now, hey, so what you doing here? I'm getting reports that you doing such and such scamming or whatever. I'm like, me, I would never. So, we go through the motions of him checking my ID. I give him the Canada ID because, what I got to lose.
Oh, man.
I hope he just can't check the numbers on it. So he called in over the radio, hey, it's such and such this name. Clarence Burton, who is this? Trying to, it come back to nothing. Okay, now I'm in cuffs. So I see my other people coming out the other door. I'm just hoping he don't get caught, but another cop went and got him the same way. And there's one more person in there with us. No, it's two more people in there with us, but I guess they didn't come out yet. They ended up getting them later. So he checked my pockets. I got 100 cards in my pocket. So it was like, oh yeah, you exactly who we looking for.
Yeah.
So he put me in the car. I'm trying to warn everybody that didn't already get arrested. So I'm with the cuffs behind my back. I done moved my phone out my pocket or like jipped it out. And I get the texting. Like, hey, I'm going to jail. I text my people to come buy me out. Like, hey, I'm going to jail. Had the money ready to come buy me out. I text the other people that's in the store. Cops here. Run, you know. But by this time, they was all blocked up already. Like, everybody got caught. So none of that worked out. They checked the car. We got everything in the trunk. It's 1,000 cards, like plastic cards in the trunk. We got receipts from transactions. We got items we didn't swipe. We got gift cards. We got the printer. We got the embosser, the tipper. It's order. Like the whole, you did. There's nothing we can say. We get, well, this before we even got indicted, it was state. It looked like when they listed the charges up state-wise, it looked crazy because every card they gave us a new charge for it. So it's like, I got 1,000 different charges. So I'm thinking like, hey, yeah, I'm going to jail for a long time.
Yeah.
So I tell the rest of my people, okay, look, y'all can just put it all on me because if we all going to jail forever, it's no need for everybody just to go to jail forever. I had y'all doing this, so y'all might as well put it on me. But they ended up not wanting to take that. At first, everybody's like, you know, all right, so be it. But then they came back to the conclusion they didn't want to do it, which I'm grateful for because it didn't end up being all day. It probably would have been if they ended up taking that. But in the holding cell, I call home to my people. I'm like, you know, even though they say when you first pick up the phone, every call is being recorded and monitored, I call my people and tell them, have another printer for me when I get out. Everything hidden, I'm going right back out as soon as I touch the street. So
that's not good. That's a bad move.
We go to the bond hearing. First two people get bond. So I'm like, okay, it's my turn. I'm about to go home. Yeah, it's sounding good. No bond. It's over with. They bring up the phone calls. The judge like, you crazy. Like, what? So, and one of my co-defendants, he didn't get bond because he had a warrant for a parking ticket or something. It was something stupid, like, but they ended up telling him he couldn't get bond. He was distraught about it. I was just like, you know, I couldn't even be mad. I did this to myself. Right. I feel you, but I'm stupid. I should be in jail right now. So we went through about a year in the county together, me and him. And the case just started to look better over time, you know? Like once the feds got it, they dropped off the 1,000 charges and just hit us with 3. So now it's just conspiracy, access device fraud, and device making equipment. So, you know, we do what everybody do while you locked in jail for and facing something. You got busted by the feds and you look at your guideline range and you trying to see exactly what you about to get. So I'm at like a level, I think 20 something. He a little bit lower than me, but they hit it. The problem is with fraud, the base score is like 6.
Yeah.
But they gave us so many enhancements. Like enhancement for the money.
Kill you.
Yeah. The money alone was 14 points. Then the device making equipment, I think, was like 4 points. The names was another 2. Sophisticated means another 2. And they just kept tacking on points.
How many people were you in charge of?
But they didn't have it. Like the feds in Detroit had that, and it's in my reason of sentencing, but it's not in my PSI. Like it's not in my points. So they didn't calculate it like that.
Okay. Because, you know, typically you'll get like, if you're in charge of 5 people, that's a 1-level enhancement. If you're in charge of more than 10, then and it just keeps going up and up.
But nobody said like it was no leader, you know?
Oh, okay.
So for them, it was just nobody went and spoke to the police at all.
Right. They're just taking it on the chin.
Yeah. And glad one of my people ended up getting re-indicted for something else. Two of them did, but they still took it on the chin. One of them got out and they raided the house and there was an enforcer there. So they hit him with another, like, he got enhancement on that case and the new case. So he ended up doing
getting worse.
5. And then another one, he ended up going to jail for murder. They gave him life. So the Fed still ain't even charged. Like he never went to court for our case, just because they figured you got life, you're not going nowhere.
Right.
And the other two of us, I feel like staying in jail was really a blessing because it led me down the path of getting less time. Because while I was in jail, I set everybody down like I was in jail with and I was cool with. I've been there for so long, so I just came up to everybody like, hey, this is what I need y'all to do. I've been reading up on it. I need y'all to write a letter to the judge and say, I've been had this class where I'm teaching y'all to be better people in such and such and such and such. So judge see all these letters everybody sending in, my family sending in letters and everything. And she decided like, okay, you learned your lesson. Like it was different for her. She ain't never seen nobody do something like that. But at the same time, the prosecutor like, don't forget he made that phone call in jail.
Right.
I did get a downward departure. It was only 2 points though. But my people, he ended up getting a bigger downward departure because he didn't have none of the problems I had with talking on the phone. So
the downward departure was for taking the plea, right?
No,
it was
family and mitigating circumstances was the official reason she used.
Okay.
But I guess that's another way everything with my daddy came in to help me in the end.
Right.
Like you were saying the other day, some things happen to you in life, you get to do whatever you want, get away with the card. That was I can't get the card again, but it definitely came in handy that time.
Right.
I feel like jail, it was kind of like a cool thing though. Like it's not a place you want to go, but it's not as bad as everybody make it sound, especially if you only got a little bit of time.
Right.
So it's like by the time we really got settled in, it was time to go. Like I got in shape in there.
So I always say
right in there.
Guys that would get like 2 or 3 years, I'd be like, it's not even worth unpacking.
Yeah.
Like
definitely.
They're putting you in for halfway house in a couple months.
But I couldn't get halfway. They said because of the amount of time I had, they just wouldn't give me halfway.
I was just too short.
Yeah. And for them, it was like I only had a year because I did a year in the county. So
right.
I came in with a year, so I would have been going straight to halfway. They like, might as well just do this a year out. But they did take away my communication while I was there. I ain't had no phone. So I'm bidding for real. Like I got to bid with the people I'm locked up with.
Mm.
But while I'm there, other people from, the group or whatever, start getting sent into prison with me. So it's like, I had somebody to talk to it all the time.
Yeah, that's always funny when you're sitting in there and you've been there for a while.
You ain't learned from me.
One of your buddies comes in, you're like, hey, hour slides for you. I'll go to comments.
Got everything for you.
Here's some soup.
10 soups. There's the money in there. You can get some soups and some stamps.
Yeah.
It's like, for the most part, that's it. Came home and started doing stuff different. Did the only scams thing. Now, instead of scamming, I can just tell people how to scam committed and make the same amount of money.
Right. So how's it all run? So you got out. When did you get out?
I got out in, I don't know the specific year. It was so long ago. I think it was like 2019 though, or I was 19. No, I was 19 when I went in. I did 2 years. I went to jail, and so it had to be like 2019. So, but I got out, and then by 2020, I started doing all these scams. At first, I was just selling people books. Like I do the little scam fraud thing, selling the book, or I sell them sit down. Either way, I need $1,000 from you.
Right.
So people would come give me that, but I start thinking about it like, I get a lot more people if I wouldn't charge them such a high amount.
Right.
So
make up with it on volume. So how did that go? How did you start doing that?
So I started with the OnlyFans, and it kind of looked weird to a lot of people because they're like, you being freaky, you OnlyFans.
No, there's legitimate people on OnlyFans. It's not all.
Well, it's just when you hear the name, that's what you think of.
Yeah.
So when people see that link, they just like, oh no, what's going on here?
You know, it's funny. It's always people that think that haven't really like been on it. You know what I'm saying? Or because then they'll see like, oh, there's lots of people that are on here that, you know, it's not just, it just ended up, those are the more famous, that's what it's known for. So, but yeah.
People on there with cooking shows and all, but
yeah. So you started doing that, and then then you moved to your own site?
Yep. And then I had to move to the own site because, you know, one of the drawbacks of being a fraud related topic, a lot of people want to punch off your site. So people punching their memberships punching is basically paying with a stolen credit card.
Okay.
So they doing that, and I'm getting the chargebacks for it. I still got enough good ones to be good with so they're not trying to take all the money back, but they held it for like 6 months.
Right.
So it's like at a time, I think I had like 17,000 just on hold. And I'm like, yeah, this is unacceptable. So I made my own site. And then I think the fraud rate was only like 10% of transactions, but it's like,
it's still a lot.
It healed everything though. Like,
right.
We just need to see what's what. So we gonna wait until everything clear to give you any money. But for them, I guess it was just, too risky. And if I was the business owner, I'd be doing the same thing. Like, hey, too risky. But so I went to my own site, and it's probably better for people not being like that too. And it's probably better for me too, because now instead of just having one price for the membership, I can have 3 different tiers. So now you can get 25, you can get the basics, but just watching videos about scamming, or you can do 30, you can ask me questions or not, or you can get the 100 and get a sit down at the end of your little course and view the whole site. So it kind of worked out for the best. And now I say with more members at a higher rate, it's like you can make a lot more money. The tiers definitely allow you to make more money. Everybody now that you would have got is going to come.
Right. So is that all you're doing? Or are you doing anything?
I still do the music, but music, it's always been something I did, but never nothing I took as serious to feel like, okay, I'm about to get a record deal.
Right.
It's always just been like a hobby for me, like it's just something I like doing, so I do. And people really don't understand, like you put a lot of money into music, but not a lot of money really come out of it. Like even the people all the way at the top, like you don't really start getting money until you start doing the shows packed out. And that's where a lot of the famous people get their money from, just doing the shows.
Right.
So, it's just like a little hobby.
Okay. So, that's pretty good. That's all you're doing. You know what I'm saying? To make a living, like that's a good life.
Yeah. To keep it legal, keep all the money still coming in, just like it was back then.
Aren't you doing? Are you thinking about doing a YouTube channel or?
See, if I did do a YouTube channel, I feel like I'd just put shorts on there. Like, I wouldn't go with the whole long concept, because the long videos, like that's what people pay to see on the site. So if I'm charging you $30 to see something that's free, now you feeling like you kind of got ripped off,
Well, you could do the Bandman Kevo thing where you give them like, it's really all hype. You never really tell them, you the whole, you want the sauce, you got to go to my, give them the secret.
The generalization.
Yeah. The you do the hype.
A lot of money. Hey, you want this amount of money? You got to do this. Or you know what this is? Follow me.
Or you could do like the, kind of the Graham Stephan thing where it's like, here's the best credit cards to get. Here's how you build your credit. Here's how your credit score works. Here's how, you could do lots of those types of financial instruction videos.
But I feel like Graham, he puts a lot of effort in his videos.
His video, listen, like I was telling Colt, my kind of the guy that runs my channel, like we're just never gonna be there. It's never gonna be in that quality. They're so good,
Yeah.
It's like this is every second of every video is super high quality. It's always hard hitting. He must plan out every single video.
But at the point where he's getting about $1 million a year off it, I would too.
Oh no, listen, like you actually not like he's making more than that. He's making so much more than that. And here's what's funny about him. You know, like when I got in the halfway house, this is in 2019, he had like a few 100,000 subscribers. He wasn't even at 1 million. And I was watching his videos because guys were telling me like, you should do this. And I was like I just got out of prison for fraud, for real estate related fraud. Like, I'm not going to do real estate videos. Like, there's no way my probation officer is going to be okay with that. They're like, yeah, but you could do this. You could do the whole, hey guys, you could do that whole thing. Like, people would buy that from you. And so I'm watching those videos, and the more I watched them, the more I was like, wait a second, how much is this guy making doing this? And what is his real qualifications? Like, you were a real estate agent. You own like 3 rental properties. That's it. You own 3 rental you own like a duplex, and then you ended up selling that, or you renting that out and got another house, and then you weren't an amazing real estate agent. It's not like you were a kick-ass real estate agent selling $20 million houses in LA. You're selling average houses in LA. Now, granted, that's still the average house. It's still $1.5 million. Yeah. But it's like, you weren't an exceptional real estate agent. And look, and I love Graham. Like, I'm not saying anything bad about him. If he was sitting here, right here, I'd tell him the same thing, which I might as well be. But I mean, it's like, you weren't exceptional, but he managed to take his personality and turn it into a phenomenon, right? Like, this amazing real estate channel. Like, guys, there were before him, like, there weren't any of these real estate. It's kind of / entertainment. It's informative / entertainment. So he's really done like something amazing with, it's not like he can say, hey, I used to build complexes that have, 400 units, and commercial properties, and I did this, and I'm worth, $200 million. Like, no, I'm an average real estate agent, and here's how, I had a lower middle class upbringing, wasn't great in school. Here's what I did. I did like money. I like working. And so I kind of just buckled down, lived within my means, and now I'm doing super well, and here's how I did it. Like, what a
want to hear. They want to feel like they can relate to it, because not everybody has been Molly,
Right. That's what I was going to say. It's reasonable. And he's not bigger than life. He's saying, hey, keep your head down, live within your means. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's saying that. Don't spend money on stupid shit. Like, no, like that is the opposite of the Instagram, fake it till you make it. He's the opposite. He's no, even when I made it, I'm not spending $5 on a fucking coffee. I'm not doing it. like who says that? But he does, and he's turned it into this massive movement, this massive thing, and also super likable. Like, I think that's a big part of it. Like, you just can't be a jerk. Ben Mala, that's shown you can be a jerk.
Exact opposites.
Exactly. Yeah, I should go on Graham's show. That would be good. I was going to do it once, and then it fell through, and I need to try and do that at some point. Make some calls, talk to a guy.
Graham, I'm sure he'd love to have you on there. You got a great story. See, the thing about you tell a story so vividly. Like, when I was watching yours, I probably watched it back like 5-6 times. Like,
nice,
especially knowing what you're talking about. Like, I know it in a deeper sense than most people would know it.
Right.
So when you say, okay, I went and got 10 houses, and then I got 10 other names, and then I basically bought the houses with the other names.
Right.
It's making a lot more sense to me than it would to the average person.
Yeah. It's so whenever I do like keynote speeches at for like mortgage brokers, the reaction I get from the mortgage brokers is vastly different because I don't have to kind of explain things. Like I break it down a little bit better if it's not a group of financial people. If it's like if they're finance or mortgage brokers, it's vastly different than me talking to some entrepreneurs. Like these are guys that own companies that paint houses, or, maybe who knows, if they're not in real estate or finance, then you have to kind of slow it down a little bit. But with the real estate agents, and then they understand the significance of when I say, so, now I've got a 750 credit score on an individual and a driver's license in that individual's name, and I've got 3 bank accounts, and so now they're sitting there like, I've got 5 years rental history, I have 5 years employment history, and they're sitting there going like, what the hell is going on? Like, so here's what I do. You tell that they're going, the impossibility of getting to that point is so difficult, but now that you're there,
the sky's the limit.
You're right, exactly. The sky is the limit. Like you're in a position now where you can do some serious damage.
For sure.
And so when I explain it, the look on their faces is, it takes everything in me not to just start laughing, because half of them are extremely offended, and the other half are like, I like you. You
made a lot of sense right now. But what people don't understand is fraud. It's like it sounds like a hard thing, but it's crazy easy. That's the problem with it. It's so easy to do it.
Listen though, here's the problem. What you're saying, it's the idea of reading a book on how to ride a bicycle. Yeah. It sounds extremely difficult. Like, this doesn't even make sense. I'm going to stand on 2 wheels and I'm going to run. The concept is outrageous. And then you get on the bicycle and you're terrified, and someone runs beside you. And then as soon as you start balancing and moving and you're riding it, you go, oh my God. A week later, 2 days later, you're doing wheelies, you're jumping off the ramps, you're riding on the handlebar, a week later, you're doing insane stuff. So you're right. The concept is difficult. The initial act of it is difficult. But once you do it, you're right. It's not hard. It's just a building block. Just what you did. You just built and built. It's baby steps and built and built. And before you know it, you're fucking lethal.
Yeah.
You start here, you have no clue. You're bumbling your way through it. And next thing you know, you're an assassin.
Definitely. That's why I think starting with jugging was really the best thing that could have happened to me. I started with something that you really can't feel it.
And then what's so funny is I could see that. I could see that working because so many people reach out to me.
Yeah.
Listen,
on YouTube, people do it. Like in your comments, I'm sure it's people under there that say, hey, this is Matt. Write me about this new Bitcoin special I'm giving away. It's the same thing.
It is. I mean, of course, I go through and I delete those. Like sometimes people will use my logo. They'll put my logo up and they'll call it like instead of Inside True Crime, Matthew Cox Inside True Crime, they'll do just like Matt Cox, and then they'll have my logo
as close as possible.
Right, pretty close. Yeah.
Graham, he had to make a whole video about it because
they were going to take his page down. Right. Yeah, they were going to take his page down at one point.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I was going to say, but no, I have people on Instagram. Listen, I'm telling you right now, 3 people a week hit me up on, hey, put me on the game. I will do whatever you want. I will send you money. I will walk in the bank. I will do this. And I'm always like, bro, I've been to prison. I'm good. No, I won't say nothing if I get caught. Stop it, man. Stop. I'm already indicted. The fact, if you go out right now and get in trouble, I'll probably be questioned at a minimum. That's if you don't ever bring my name up. They got your phone. Like if we've been, and then of course, if we actually have communication, let's say we texted 30 times and eventually you got around to saying, listen, bro, here's what I need from you. Oh, no. Like now I'm really in trouble because when they run your phone numbers, my number comes up and they're going to be like, oh, you're involved for sure. And I'm just going to be like, no. So, if I wanted, I could easily shake down every single person that contacts me. I could shift them to a site. I could say, great, give me $1,000, give me $2,000. I'll tell you how to do this, how to do that. But I don't have any second chances. Definitely. My judge never sees me again. If it's a fucking parking ticket, he's going to be like, I'm going to decapitate you. Do you understand what's happening right now? I'm going to give you 20 years, and maybe I can't legally do it, but I bet you I can drag out the proceedings for 5 to 10 years of you just trying to fix it. And I'll be like, God, man,
that's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm definitely get it though.
You know, on the jacket cover of my book, I put a quote from my judge.
What was the quote?
He said, it's one of my favorite quotes. He said the complexity and the complexity and nefariousness of Cox's fraud are breathtaking.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's something you put on the front page of a book.
I was like, yeah, Timothy C. Batten, federal. It's like, oh my God.
Now that we saying this, it feels like I need to say, for the record, the only things I can say, the things that are on legal proceedings, other than that, everything is for entertainment purposes in this podcast. This is all is based on the true story.
Well, you know what? What's funny is like YouTube, like they'll only let you say so much. Like YouTube is going to be more stringent because the fact is you just race through everything you just said is already readily available, and there's only one or two things that could maybe. It's like, is that instructional? Like, you don't give enough. Like, I never really let anybody give it up
on the life story. Like, they might come supersede me with something from 10 years ago. Like, hey, yeah, you said it.
Nah, you didn't give it up.
No, a leader, but hey, you said it.
Nah, you're good. Fraud's what, 10 years? You're good. And plus, here's the other thing: a lot of people don't realize is that when they've grabbed you and sentenced you on a specific set of crimes, they can't come back and re-indict you on an enhancement because you had me. You had your due diligence. You had your chance to investigate. You chose this was all you wanted to indict me for. I pled guilty. Like, it stops at that point. They can't turn around after you've served your sentence and say, hey, wait a second, we want a re-indictment. Why? Because we found out he was a leader organizer and he should have done 4 more months. Come on, man, stop. Like, it would have to be a completely new set of crimes. Like, you would have had to say, oh, and during this point, me and my buddies went in, we got some AK-47s and we went into this Bank of America. We got $100,000 in cash. Yeah, it was right there on the corner of Crenshaw and now you have a problem. If it hasn't been 10 years, now you have an issue.
I'm just scared of them people altogether. I don't want to have to be the one to prove it. that this, a lot of times they just snatch you up and let you have to fight it. Even if they wrong, just because it might be the agent on your case just ain't feeling what you stand for,
Oh, listen, I just interviewed this guy who was 16 years old, got indicted for rape and murder. And when the DNA came back and showed it wasn't him, the prosecutor said, just means that she had sex with someone else earlier that day. Really?
That's right.
Like a 15-year-old girl had sex earlier that day. And the semen is spread out all over the crime scene. You were saying it was me. So that he goes to trial, he loses. He fought it.
Losing in trial with that is crazy.
16 years. The only reason he got out after 16 years, by the way, like he got like life. I think he got life. The old life or natural life or 30, or you get 30 years. Anyway, he's in jail. The only reason is that when initially he got indicted, the DNA database did not exist. So all he was saying was, I'm begging you to just run the DNA against the new database. You guys only ran the DNA against me, 15, 16 years ago. Please just run it against everybody. And so finally, the Innocence Project tested the DNA, and it came back to a guy who'd been arrested 10 years earlier for the murder of a school teacher with 2 children. And he was in prison, and it was his DNA.
Correct.
So then, of course, so here's the thing. Think about this. So prosecutor and the detectives and the judge and everybody else that sent that man to prison and insisted they knew he did it and knew the whole thing. Nothing. While you focused on this guy who said, I did not do this, and you overlooked the evidence and you quashed this and fought this motion, and you said, oh, it's not his DNA. We said it was, but it's not. Well, you know what then? That's somebody else's DNA. You continue with the prosecution. You allowed the real murderer to go out and murder someone else, a school teacher with 2 children, while you held an innocent man in prison. Nothing happens to them.
He raping up a scar.
So, yeah, and fought to have didn't want the DNA tested. Why? Why wouldn't you want the DNA tested? Why? If you're so sure of you're so sure that you know it was just some other high school student that had sex with her earlier that day, why wouldn't you have it tested? Nope. Fought to have it not tested. Like this every step of the process. Scumbag.
Definitely. And then when it all come out in the end and you realize you was wrong, and it's no apology. It's just like, you feel like I did it, you know?
Well, at the time we felt we had enough. We had everything pointed to him. No, actually, now that the evidence has come out, nothing ever pointed to him. Ever. You just decided it was him. Well, yeah. Can't sue him, can't do nothing. They go on, they get a better post, they move on.
I wish you had a better lawyer, because I feel like you should have beat it at trial at that. DNA, they had other DNA at that time period. Like that should have been the focus of everything.
Keep in mind, he's poor. He's got a public defender. He didn't have anybody. Nobody's looking out for this guy. So
that's crazy.
Hey, I appreciate you guys watching. And if you like the video, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos like this. Also, leave me a comment in the comment section. We're going to leave all of Javar's contact information in the description box. And I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you.
I was born in actually a town that doesn't actually exist anymore, at least not by that name. I was born in North Terrytown, which of course later became known as Sleepy Hollow. I grew up in Peekskill, New York, which is in Westchester County, New York. So it was the suburbs, population of approximately 25,000 people. I would say kind of lived a double life, both in grade school and high school. I didn't quite think of it that way as a double life, but I realized now it kind of was. There was my life in school, my life outside of school. So in school, I was kind of quiet, kind of to myself. I was kind of on the fringes of the society in the school. Whereas there was my life after school. So I grew up in an apartment complex. There were a lot of kids that lived there and in the surrounding areas, and they used to come over to the complex where I lived at. And I was one of the main 2 kids, in the sense that what we suggested would generally be what we would do. We're going to go to the movies, we're going to play Monopoly, ride bikes, swimming, basketball, stickball, kickball. We even made up a few games. Yeah, so I was kind of like an all-American kid after school, but in school I was, had the quiet on the fringes of society. And I thought about why that really is I think firstly, the kids were a little bit older than I was. Like I skipped a grade, I skipped first grade, and I think that kind of caught up with me. But another thing also is that I was familiar with the kids in the neighborhood, and I was not really familiar with the kids that were in school.
Okay. Did you ever get in high school? Did you ever get in trouble or anything, or?
No, not prior to what we're going to talk about. Unless you're ready for me to start talking about it.
No, it's fine. Okay, so just kind of a regular. If there is a regular, upbringing. Everybody's either on the fringes, or maybe they're popular, or maybe they're not popular, or nobody really. I don't know that there's really a traditional. Growing up, everybody's got something going on. So you were in high school. So when did you go to college? Did you start college, or?
No, I was in, the year is 1989. I'm a freshman in high school, and one of my classmates, Angela Correa, who had been, actually I'm a sophomore in high school. So she was in 2 of my classes as a freshman, one as a sophomore. I knew her name, she knew mine. that was really the extent of it. We weren't even really on a high-buy basis. She had been an immigrant in the country for about a year and a half from Colombia, led a sheltered life, never really went anywhere unless she was accompanied by her older sister or her parents. And so she went missing. She had been in one of her classes was a photography class, and the professor had assigned the class to take pictures of foliage. And he had assigned a buddy system, whereby male students and female students were paired up. And so she went home with her older sister after school. Her sister went to the restroom, and when she came out, Angela was gone. She went off to the park to do the assignment connected to her photography class. The male student who had been assigned to her played hooky, never showed up. And so there was an area between Hillcrest, New York, which there's condominiums, and then there's Hillcrest School, and there's like a really thick woods with like a macadam path there that links the two, which is kind of like a shortcut way of getting from point A to point B rather than going in a big circle on the street. And that woods area is pretty thick there. And she had the misfortune of coming across a 29-year-old drug addict who was high, and he attacked, murdered, and raped her, and so her body was missing for like 3 days.
Okay, so I didn't realize this was that this all took place in high school. I just kind of, I don't know why I assumed it was college or something, but okay, so
yeah, so she's missing for 3 days, and and there's an announcement over the high school PA system and the local daily newspaper. And 3 days later, her body was found in the park area, naked from the waist down. Peekskill was it was a city population about 25,000 people. Or murders were fairly rare. So when this murder happened, it created this atmosphere of fear, rumor, paranoia. I mean, parents were bringing their kids to school, picking them up after school, bringing them straight home. There were, town hall meetings held where safety tips and progress of investigation were given. So I got on the police radar because some of the police interviewed a lot of students from the high school, and some of them told the police they might want to speak with me because I didn't quite fit in. I guess their underlying thinking was people who are quiet to themselves commit heinous crimes. Guess that was their rudimentary thought process. But that answers the question of how I got on the police radar. But an additional factor after that is I was a sensitive teenager, and this was my first real brush with death, and so I had an emotional reaction. And so the police thought that my emotional reaction was somehow some outward sign of my feeling guilty for what I did, because they felt that reaction was disproportionate to what my actual relationship with the victim was, which is, no relationship at all. I mean, I mentioned choosing a couple of classes, and that was really it. Wasn't even really on a high-buy basis. A reinforcing factor is that the police got a psychological profile from the NYPD, which purported to have the psychological characteristics of the actual perpetrator. And I had the misfortune of matching those characteristics. So the profile said that he was, somebody who was likely a loner, probably somebody from high school, somebody that knew her. Well, that really narrows it down quite a bit, right?
Well, it also excludes her running across a random person. It's now they're focusing on a peer.
Yeah, exactly. So my interaction with the police, which went on for about 6 weeks, they played like a cat and mouse game with me, in which half the time they would speak to me as if I was a suspect, and the other half the time they would pretend like they needed my help to solve the crime. They would say things like, the kids won't talk freely around us, but they will around you. Let us know if you hear anything. Stop in from time to time. They would ask me opinion questions and congratulate me like my opinion was correct. They made me feel important. I came from a single-parent household. My father was never involved in my life in any aspect. And that intersected with the good cop, bad cop technique, where one officer pretended to be a friend, and the other officer took on a more aggressive approach. And in time, I began to look at the officer pretending to be my friend as like a father figure. Also, prior to being a teenager, the career that I fantasized about having when I grew up was to be a cop. So that unexpected early opportunity to do this quasi-police work was how the police were able to pull the wool over my eyes, that 16-year-old would be able to assist them in an active homicide investigation. So eventually they got me to agree to take a polygraph test. They said, we have some new information, which just came in the file, that'll allow you to be even more helpful to us. But first you're going to have to take and pass a polygraph. So the next day, rather than report to the high school, I went to the police station for the test. But instead of giving me the test there, they drove me by car to the town of Brewster, which was in Putnam County. So it was about 40 minutes away by car, which meant that I wasn't able to leave anymore on my own. I was totally dependent upon the police. So there were 3 cops that came with me from Peekskill to Brewster. But then there was also the polygraphist, who was a Putnam County sheriff, and Daniel Stevens was his name, and he was dressed like a civilian. And, he never identified himself as law enforcement. He never read me my rights. I didn't have an attorney present. They didn't give me anything to eat. He gave me a 4-page brochure which explained how the polygraph worked, but then But I had a lot of big words in it that I didn't understand. But then I figured, well, I'm there to help the police, so what does it matter?
Right.
Let's just get on with it. And from there, he put me in a small room and gave me countless cups of coffee, which got me nervous. And then he wired me up to the polygraph, and then he launched into his third-degree tactics. So he raised his voice at me. He invaded my personal space. He kept repeating the same questions over and over. And as each hour passed by, my fear increased in proportion to the time. And he kept that up for 6.5 to 7 hours. Towards the end, yes.
Where was your mother?
My mother and grandmother, they were at home. They because it was a school day, they had no idea that anything was wrong. So they didn't call around looking for me.
Okay.
And so towards the end, he said, what do you mean you didn't do it? You just told me through the test that you did. We just want you to verbally confirm it. And that really shot my fear through the roof. And then the officer who had been pretending to be my friend, he came in the room and told me that the other officers were going to harm him, were going to harm me, that he had been holding them off, that he couldn't do so any longer. You have to help yourself here. Then he added, look, just tell them what they want to hear, and you can go home afterwards, that you're not going to be arrested. So being young, naive, frightened, 16 years old, I wasn't thinking about the long term. I was just concerned with my safety in the moment. So I made up a story based on the information they'd given me in the course of the interrogation room and in the 6 weeks run up to that. By the time everything was said and done, I had collapsed on the floor in a fetal position, crying uncontrollably. Obviously, I was arrested. The interrogation was not videotaped. It was not audio taped. There was no signed confession. It was just the cop's word for it.
What year was this?
Yeah, this was 1990. So she went missing in 89, and by the time they extracted this false confession out of me, it was in 1990. So before I went to trial, the results of a DNA test came in from the FBI lab, which showed that seminal fluid found in and around the victim didn't match me. But instead of acknowledging they made a mistake, they continued to prosecute full speed ahead. In order to explain away the DNA, the prosecutor got the medical examiner to commit fraud, to commit perjury. When there's an autopsy done, there's written in audio notes, which are taken as the findings are made when they're doing the autopsy. So it was only 6 months after doing that autopsy, only after the DNA didn't match me, that he suddenly claimed that, try to follow now, this is going to be tricky. He remembered that he forgot to document medical findings, which he claimed showed that the victim had been promiscuous. which is what opened the door for the prosecutor to argue that that was how the DNA didn't match me, and yet I was guilty, that she was sleeping around, that she must have slept with someone prior to my murdering and raping her.
I thought they were going to go with the old, that just means there were two perpetrators, you and someone else.
Right. Yeah, they go with that sometimes, but not on this particular instance. They took it a step further, and they named another youth by name that they claimed that she had slept with. But they never set the proper evidentiary foundation for that. So they didn't try to get a DNA sample from him to run the test, for example. They didn't call him as a witness. They just made the unsupported argument to the jury. They got away with that because of two factors. I mean, first of all, the victim's family was not coming to court, so they had no idea what was being said about her in the courtroom, that they were trashing her reputation in the furtherance of trying to convict me. And secondly, the public defender that I had essentially didn't defend me. He never interviewed or called as a witness my alibi. I was actually playing wiffle ball when the crime happened. He rarely met with me. When he did meet with me and I tried to explain to him that I was innocent and what happened in the interrogation room, he was always shutting me up. One time he told me he didn't care if I was guilty or innocent. My lawyer never explained to the jury the significance of the DNA not matching me. He never used that to prove that the confession was coerced and false. He literally never cross-examined the medical examiner. And my lawyer should have never represented me in the first place because of a conflict of interest. So this other youth that the prosecutor was falsely claiming had slept with the victim was represented by another attorney at the same public defender's office. And so that conflict prevented the defense from asking him to give a DNA sample. It prevented the defense from calling him as a witness to explode the whole consensual sex theory. He wouldn't allow me to testify. I mean, I wanted to testify because the interrogation had not been video audio taped, when the cops came to court, they left the threat and false promise out of their story. And so I wanted to add those facts to the record. But he wouldn't allow me to testify. He said that his one-loss record was better when his clients did not testify compared to when they did. Well, probably his clients have had a pre-existing record, and if they took the stand, then they could be asked questions about that. But that really didn't apply to me because I had never been convicted of anything. Then he said it wasn't up to him to prove that I was innocent. It was up to the prosecutor to prove that I was guilty. And that really is a legal principle that's very naive. You have to really try to prove your client's innocent, or they run a risk of possibly being wrongfully convicted. Especially in a confession case, where you have to answer that confession, you have to explain the confession, you have to disprove the confession, bringing it all together in your closing argument. But he didn't do any of that. Sometimes he told the jury that the confession never happened. Sometimes he told the jury that it did happen, but it was coerced. And then other times he said that it was false. So by taking this throw mud against the wall type of approach, he had to have been standing there with no credibility at all in front of the jury. There were a few other irregularities. I mean, despite there being a general rule that polygraph test results are not admissible in court, the judge created a backdoor rule. He allowed the polygraphist to repeatedly tell the jury that I failed. He said, well, the confession is alleged to have happened when you were attached to during the polygraph. So he allowed the polygraphist to repeatedly tell the jury that I failed the polygraph while blocking my attorneys from asking any questions on the methods he used to arrive at his opinion. The victim's clothes, including the bra, had been entered into evidence, and the jury asked to see the bra, which was important because that intersected with one of the statements in the false confession where I had said that I ripped her bra off. And it was at that moment that the judge said that the clothes had been left, including the bra, had been left in the courtroom over the weekend, and that the janitors apparently thought it was garbage, so it had been thrown out, and so it wasn't available anymore. And lastly, the jury sent out a note on their third day of deliberation. They asked the judge, well, if we don't come up with an unanimous verdict, if you don't come up with a verdict, are we going to be kept sequestered over the Christmas holiday? And the judge told him yes. And I learned many years later that it was 11-1 for a conviction at that point. There was a holdout juror who thought I was innocent, but they were all pressuring him. And when the answer to that question came back, that ratcheted up the pressure. And that was why no one wanted to be there over the Christmas holiday. So that was why he switched to vote. And so ultimately I was convicted of a murder and rape, which I did not commit. And I was given a 15 to life sentence because I'd been charged as an adult, and I was sent to a men's maximum security prison.
Wow. You know what? The interesting thing, I mean, other than just, what an egregious act, is that I'll bet you the prosecutor and those detectives just broke their arms patting themselves on the back, telling themselves that they did the right thing, went home, slept like babies, didn't think a thing about it.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Yeah.
So wow. So you get shipped off to prison.
Right.
You're processed, you get shipped off to prison.
Right.
You're how old again?
I'm 17 by this point.
17, and they sent you to a maximum security prison.
Yes.
You had to have been put in like protective custody or something, right? I mean,
no, they put me in general population. When I arrived in Elmira, they asked me, well, do you want to go to protective custody? And, like very naive, I said, well, what's that? And they said, well, I mean, we would, if you told us that you felt that your life was in danger because of the charges, then, we would put you in a cell and you would be there for like 23 hours a day. You just come out for an hour, you come out by yourself and watch the television or take a shower or use the phone. And, that would be it. And, I mean, I really was kind of beside myself. I couldn't believe I had been, been arrested and wrongfully convicted and, given a 15 to life sentence, and I'm in prison. And now I couldn't believe all that had happened in the first place. And, I really wasn't used to being in a cell at that point. So, I couldn't see myself, agreeing to protective custody, which would, make the situation worse. So I embarked on this line of reasoning. So I'm already doing a life sentence, so I'm not going to agree to make this worse. I'm going to go to general population and take my chances. And if somebody kills me, well, then I guess I don't need to worry about doing the rest of this life sentence. Could you imagine thinking that at that age?
That's a horrible situation.
Yeah, it was Elmira. There was 3 or 4 stabbings or cuttings every day. There was other violence that didn't involve weapons. There was gang activity. Cumulatively, there was a general environment of violence and adrenaline that permeated the air. The guards were some were professional, did their job, but a lot were not. A lot of them were dangerous, and some of them were lazy, and they'd look the other way and walk in the opposite direction when violence was occurring, so that they didn't have to break anything up physically or file any paperwork. The food was sometimes burned, other times it wasn't fully cooked. They had a system of maintaining order in the prison they called keep up, which involved, if someone was found guilty of breaking a prison rule, they would be kept in the cell 23 hours a day out of the 24. They would send you less food. Sometimes it would be 3 or 4 days old. You could take 2 showers one week and 3 the next, rather than daily as the rest of the population. You could not go to the commissary, which is a way of going to the store in the prison, so you couldn't purchase hygienic items or food items while you were on that status. It would give you 1 hour a day recreation by yourself in a small caged area with maybe a pull-up bar on it if you were lucky. You could use the phone while you were on that status. So there were a bunch of times in the course of my incarceration where I was assaulted. One time in which I nearly lost my life. But beyond dealing with the physicality of that, I was subjected to those sections, because in prison, if you're defending yourself, then that obviously meant that you were fighting.
Right.
I tried to minimize the loss I experienced while I was in prison. I got the GED. I completed a bunch of vocational trades. I got an associate's degree. I completed another year towards the bachelor, but then the silver lining was taken from me. The funding for college education for prisoners was removed. Then I did more of the trades, and I started reading nonfiction books. And of course, I was going to the law library to learn the law, to try to proactively work towards my exoneration, because I didn't trust attorneys to defend me anymore on my.
Yeah, I was going to say, gee, I don't know why.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. My mother used to come see me, but not in the last 5-6 years. She would come like once every 6 months. Grandmother passed away while I was in prison. I had several sets of aunts and uncles would come and then would disappear for 3 years, come and disappear. So in many respects, though not literally, I mean, for most intents and purposes, I did the time by myself. Is what it amounted to. Towards the end of the sentence minimum, the correctional officials told me if I wanted to have any chance at all of making parole, I would have to take and pass the sex offender training program. But the problem was that there was a guilt admission requirement tied to that. Everybody in the class would be expected to admit guilt to the other prisoners in the class. The instructor simply saying that one was guilty was not enough. They wanted a complete blow-by-blow account, and they wanted it all in writing, and failure to complete any aspect of that would result in automatic removal from the program and being deemed to have refused to complete the program, kind of similar to like an AA type of philosophy.
Right.
You have a problem before you can make any actual progress on it. So in the end, I decided not to take the program. Did you want to ask something about that? Or something?
Well, what I wanted to ask is, you're going in as a rapist, murderer, essentially a sex offender, right? That's
right. Yeah, exactly right.
Into a maximum security prison.
Yeah.
How? I mean, I understand you said you had, there was several, there was altercations. But I mean, how are the other inmates? Are you being told like, hey, you can't watch TV, you can't do this, you can't walk on the rec yard, you can't is that happening at that prison? Or are you saying, hey, I went to trial, I'm not guilty of this, and the other inmates were...
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I did say that to some people. I mean, I did get transferred. I didn't stay in Elmira the whole time. I did get transferred to other facilities. I would say I had more problems in the other facilities than in Elmira. But, people, sometimes people found out what I was incarcerated for, and, that motivated them to attack me. I mean, I did have some conversations with people a couple of times, and I showed them my paperwork where it shows that, the DNA did it match me, and, that restrained a few people, so it worked sometimes, but not all the time.
Well, inmates aren't known for, well thought out responses. So, right. I mean, I can see them, they hear guilty, and even though, most of them want to say that, they were bamboozled by the government, whatever, the U.S. Attorney's Office or the state attorney's office, in their case, and they didn't deserve this much time. But the moment they hear somebody has a charge of, oh, he's a rapist, they're, oh, that scumbag piece of garbage. What are you talking about, bro? Like you said you shouldn't even be here. He said he shouldn't be here. Like they're always quick to jump on somebody. Even though...
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I was going to say, even though, when you get up there for sentencing, the prosecutor makes you sound like the biggest piece of garbage, and you already, like, hey, that's not true. That's an exaggeration. He's, that never happened at all, in your own case. So, but then guys jump on each other. They're always, I don't know, whatever. People are assholes.
No, I agree with you. When I went to the parole board, I knew they were in the habit of rubber stamping 9 applications. Anybody that had been found guilty of violent crime. So I kept raising the issue of my innocence to try to protect myself when I referenced the DNA, but they didn't want to hear that. So at the end, they asked me a question about an aggression replacement training program. I gave them the answer. And that's when a different commissioner piped up and said, well, that's good, Mr. Deskovic, because you're going to need those skills once you return back to society. Good luck. And, they don't give you the decision right there on the spot. It's mailed via institutional mail 3 days later. And I actually walked around the prison for the next 3 days thinking that I had somehow defied the odds and that I would be going home. And when I got the decision in the mail, it said I had a good disciplinary record, I had an excellent educational record, that I had some letters of support, including from a prison chaplain, but that nonetheless I had been found guilty of a brutal and senseless crime, and therefore they wrote to release me would be to lessen its seriousness, so they ordered me to appear in front of them 2 years later. And it seemed kind of certain at that point I was going to die in prison on a wrongful conviction. The other aspect of the incarceration I want to mention to you that it didn't recount, is that I had to keep fighting off feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, thoughts of giving up, suicidal ideation. All those things were thoughts that I had to deal with. So I'd like to change gears a little bit and share how I was exonerated and proven innocent.
At what point, how long had you been locked up at this point?
16 years.
16 years. Okay.
Yeah. So, while I was in prison, I was appealing my case. When I went to the appellate division, my lawyer argued that the manner in which I had been questioned, violated my rights, that the evidence throwing out, that blocking my lawyer from questioning, the polygraph is, DNA was made use of, the legal insufficiency, and that they hadn't proven guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The verdict was against the weight of the evidence. A whole slew of issues, about 10 in all, had been argued, and I thought all the arguments were really super solid. And the court ruled that I was free to come and go, and so I had my rights had not been violated by the manner in which I had been questioned. They wrote that there was overwhelming evidence of guilt, which kind of is a head scratcher since the DNA didn't match me. Then they knocked out all the rest of my issues in one sentence. They wrote that they looked at my remaining contentions and found them either to be without merit or else not preserved for review. And they ruled against me 5-0. And it was all downhill from there. The argument motion was denied in one word, denied. The New York Court of Appeals, New York State's highest court, it's a 2-step process. You have to get permission to appeal to them before they'll agree to hear your case. And they declined to give me permission to appeal to them.
Is that a certificate of eligibility or something?
That's right. Certificate of appealability. Yeah, was not issued. I filed a habeas corpus petition, which is when a state prisoner is arguing that they're being held in violation of their constitutional rights. So I lost the habeas petition because my lawyer was given the wrong information pertaining to the filing procedure by the court clerk. So as a result of that misinformation, the petition arrived 4 days too late, which the court ruled at the urging of the then Westchester District Attorney, Janine Pirro. Her office urged the court to simply rule that I was late without getting to my issues. And so the court did that. And now I was time barred. So I can't win for losing. Okay. I can't win for losing. So I appealed that ruling to the Federal Court of Appeals. The two judges there were Rosemary Pooler and, more importantly, future U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, and the so-called empathetic Latina.
Mm-hmm.
And my lawyer argued that, number one, this was not a delayed by me and my attorney, but by the misinformation by the court clerk, which I think is reasonable enough. She argued that upholding that ruling would cause a miscarriage of justice to continue, which kind of links back to the DNA and innocence, at least as a contextual matter. And lastly, that overturning the procedural ruling against me would open the door to more sophisticated DNA testing. So again, the district attorney opposed, and the two judges ruled with the district attorney. They upheld that ruling. Then those same two judges rejected my re-argument motion. We requested all the judges in the circuit to hear the court and make a collective decision. And then the U.S. Supreme Court declined to give me permission to appeal. And that marked the end of my appeal. So that's 7 appeals lost. I've got 11 years in now.
Well, wait a second. This is starting to feel unfair. And I know specifically that I've been told over and over again that the U.S. justice system is extremely fair. They couldn't possibly have made a mistake.
That is the thought that people think, but I don't think it's. I feel confident that the justice system is broken.
That hasn't been your experience?
It has not been my experience, nor the experience of many other people. So the only way back into court once your appeals are over is if there's a retroactive ruling in the law. A new law has been passed, or has been but made by the courts, and then it's been retroactive. So it's either that or find some previously unknown evidence of innocence, which probably would have led to a different outcome. So because I didn't have any money to hire an attorney or investigator, I began this letter writing campaign for 4 years, writing anywhere, everywhere I could possibly think of that could help me. So that was my legal work for many years. And then, as I mentioned, I went to the parole board and I got the door slammed there as well. But ultimately, I was exonerated because one of those letters found its way to an investigator, Claudia Whitman, and she wrote me, and I showed her the DNA test results. I mailed a copy of that, and she was convinced of my innocence at that point. And then she tried to get people to take my case, and one of her ideas was the winning one. She suggested I write the Innocence Project again. And I wrote them back in part of the letter writing campaign back in 1993. But she said, look, the prior denial is irrelevant because the DNA data bank has been created. So I wrote them, I filled out their application, and then I forgot about it. I looked for other ways of getting representation, none of which worked out. But I learned many years later, during that 6-month time period of waiting, that one of the Intech workers, who was not an attorney with the Innocence Project attorneys, didn't want to take the case. She represented my case to them, and when they said no again, she represented it a third time. And this time she got it across using an idea that I had given her about the DNA data bank. So getting a representation was the first key. The second key was that Parole left office and her successor didn't have her heel dug in. So she allowed me to get the testing. And the third thing is we got lucky that the actual perpetrator's DNA was in the data bank. And so it matched him. So his DNA was only there because left free while I was doing time for his crime. He killed a second victim 3.5 years later after killing the victim in my case. She was a school teacher and had 2 children. So September 22nd, 2006, the conviction was overturned. I was released. I went back to court November 2nd, 2006, at which point all the charges were dismissed against me on actual innocence grounds, and the actual perpetrator was subsequently arrested and convicted and sentenced for the crime.
What's going on, YouTube? RDAP Dan here, Federal Prison Time Consulting. Hope you guys are all having a great day. If you're seeing and hearing this right now, that means you're watching Matt Cox on Inside True Crime. At the end of Matt's video, there will be a link in the description where you can book a free consultation with yours truly, RDAP Dan, where we can discuss things that could potentially mitigate your circumstances to receive the best possible outcome at sentencing or even after you started your prison sentence. Prior to sentencing, we can focus on things like your personal narrative, your character reference letters, prepping you properly for the pre-sentence interview, which is going to determine a lot of what type of sentence you receive. If you've already been sentenced, we can also focus on the residential drug abuse program, how you can knock off 1 year off of your sentence. Also, we have the First Step Act where you can earn FSA credits while serving your sentence. For every 30 days that you program through the FSA, you can actually knock an additional 15 days off per month. These are huge benefits, and the only way you're going to find out more is by clicking on the link, booking your free consultation today. All right, guys, see you soon at the end of the video. Peace. I'm out of here. Back to you, Matt.
If that happened today and they said, hey, there's semen, and they ran it against everyone, would it stay in the system?
If it was uploaded, yeah. So they have what's called a keyboard search where they don't upload it. It goes up and it compares to everything, and that's it, right?
So
but
they don't store it.
Right. But then there's another thing, when they do actually upload it, then it stays there, and periodically another test is run and see if it matches anybody else.
Okay, so the Innocence Project had to get the DNA, upload it, it matched.
Yeah.
Because what I was wondering was, well, you're saying that he'd killed someone else, and they retested his DNA, and I was thinking to myself, well, why wasn't it already in the system? But you just need.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I just answered that.
Okay. So my second question is, when you got that news, you were incarcerated. Did the lawyer come see you? Did they just say call the office?
No, the lawyer came to see me, and so I'll tell you the story.
Okay.
This is what we're here for.
Right.
So the prison guard opens my cell door. You know, when that happens, you're supposed to walk down and, see why they open your door for. And, and he told me I had a visit. And I said, well, can you double check that? Because I'm really not expecting anybody. So they double checked it, and, sure enough, I had a visit. So I remember running back to my cell, and it was a kind of a tradition to keep like a visiting room shirt, because this is the one opportunity you kind of sort of make a public appearance, right. So you have like your best shirt. So, so I'm hurrying up to the visiting room, I'm buttoning up this button-down shirt, and I'm thinking who the hell came to see me, right? So when I get in the visiting room, this woman is like waving at me like this, and I wave back, but I'm thinking, well, maybe she's confusing me with someone else, or maybe she knows me from a different facility. So I asked the guard, well, where's my visitor? And she told me, well, the lady right there, but wait, don't you know who it is that came to see you? So not wanting the visit to be canceled, I just quickly lied to her and said, yeah, of course I do. And I walked over there, and she told me, that her name was Nita Morris, and she was my attorney. And, by this point, having lost a lot of appeals, sometimes on technicalities, like my antennas are up, I'm looking for anything out of the ordinary that might spell bad news. So she says, well, the items have been tested. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? The items are not supposed to have been tested for another month. And she says, no, the items were tested, and the results match the actual perpetrator. You're going home tomorrow. And I said, no, I'm not. And we went back and forth like 2 more times. And I remember just my head kind of spinning and all these thoughts running through my head, one after the other, one thought having nothing to do with the other, and none of them having anything to do with, what she was there to talk to me about. And she was sitting there. I had this like 3-hour mental paralysis. She's holding my hand, and every now and then she cuts in and says, are you ready to talk about tomorrow? I'm like, no, get that away from me. I'm not entertaining that. Don't play with me like that. I'm not going home. No. And what made it real at the end was that what made it real was that she looked up at the clock and said, look, the visiting hours are almost over. There's a ton of work to do between now and then. I got to get your suit size and, your clothing sizes and everything. And that made it real. And I felt better for 5 minutes. And then a different thought came in my head. And I thought, well, something's going to happen between today and tomorrow. They're going to change their mind, and they're going to do what they always do, which is fight and win. So that was how I got the news.
So the next day they come, they pick you up, they drive you to court.
Yeah.
Is there press there?
Yeah, there was a ton of press. There was a ton of press in the courtroom and outside the court. And, they had my extended family, my mother came and my extended family came. And I remember when I went outside at the press conference, it was my turn to speak. I remember saying, "Is this really happening?" You know, because I thought I finally did it. I thought I finally managed to lose my mind, and that was wake up and still be in the prison cell and see the cell wall and cell bars and hear all the other cues and clues to remind you you're in prison. Yeah. So I mean, I did.
Yeah. What happened in the courtroom? What?
Yeah. So I mean, when so when I came in the courtroom, I saw Barry Scheck and my other lawyer at the Innocence Project, and Scheck leans over and says, "Well, I spoke to the judge in the chambers, and you're definitely going home today." And then he said, "Do you want to say something to the judge?" And but then the judge came. So the case is supposed to come back in front of the same judge that presided over the trial. He was still on the bench, but he ducked the assignment.
He didn't want it. He didn't want to be a part of this.
Yeah, exactly. So I had the impression from the rush in and the rush out that this judge got stuck doing this. He really that he really didn't want to have any part of it either. But he was just stuck. He was the low man on the totem pole. So by him running out, I didn't get the chance to say anything.
What about the U.S. prosecutor? Or I'm sorry, the state prosecutor?
Yeah, so my lawyer mentioned, the DNA never matched me, that it, then they went to the data bank and it matched the actual perpetrator, and that person admitted they committed the crime. And then the state prosecutor, said the same thing my lawyer did. And, they both agreed in asking for the conviction to be overturned and me to be released.
Was it the same U.S. prosecutor?
No.
Same state prosecutor?
No, it was not. No, none of the people were the original people that were involved in the case. So for the next, it was very difficult transitioning back to society. I mean,
wait, one more question. Did the state prosecutor give you my bad, or hey?
Yeah, but not there. But wait. Yes, the short answer is yes. It's for me. It was a bifurcated process. So they overturned the conviction, and then we went back to court like 6 weeks later. Then the charges were dismissed, and that's when the prosecutor, gave me a symbolic apology. But she was not the prosecutor that was
right.
Had prosecuted me. Said I got a symbolic apology from the district attorney, but she wasn't the DA at the time this happened. I got a symbolic apology from the judge, but that was not the one who presided over the trial.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead. You were saying.
Yeah, I was just going to discuss what it was like, trying to put my life back together again. I used to go to a mental health professional like 4 times a week for like 6 years with dealing with the psychological after effects. There was a stigma involved. I was in prison for 16 years wrongfully, but I was still there for 16 years. So, how much of that rubbed off on you? Is it safe to be alone someplace with you? So definitely that's been a challenge in terms of personal relationships. It was awkward when I'd meet up with my extended family because most of them had never come to see me, and the few that did, it was few and far between. So they had in effect become strangers. So who I knew was intellectually, but I was a different person. So were they. Technology was different. Cell phones, GPS, internet hadn't been created. Culture was different. Cities looked different. I was released with nothing. I was always passed over for gainful employment. I did get a job as a weekly columnist, but they only wanted 1 article a week. I was making money doing speaking engagements, but that's really not a consistent form of income. So things were very difficult financially. I lacked stability at housing. I bounced around from place to place. At one point, I was a couple of weeks away from the homeless shelter. Mercy College, which gave me a scholarship to finish the bachelor's degree, they allowed me to stay on campus. It gave me the meal plan. So that was how I avoided that. But I want to say that I had some particular challenges, though, just because my incarceration spanned from age 17 to 32. I mean, I had never before lived alone. I hadn't had a driver's license. I had never went shopping. I had never wrote a check or balanced the budget. So all those things were new and difficult for me.
I understand. Did Did you go through a period of time when you felt like the doorbell would ring, or you kept feeling like they were going to come and say, we made a mistake?
Yeah, I did have that feeling. And then I also, had a feeling like for a while, it took me a while, like I still felt like I was a prisoner that just somehow or another managed to somehow get loose or get free. Yeah, there definitely was that saying. And, for a while, I would like feel something in the back of my head. I mean, not literally, but almost like a metaphorical tapping on my shoulder. And well, what are you doing? Like everybody else belongs here, but you don't. But you realize that you realize that you don't, but nobody else does. What are you what are you doing out here?
And so in the state prison system, do they have like a 4 o'clock count where you have to be standing up in your cell?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, about 4:20. But yeah, they do. They do have that. Yeah.
I was gonna say, so around 3:30, 3:45 for probably the first, I'm telling you, over a year, I would feel extremely anxious in my chest. Like this, I would get this anxiety, like I need to be somewhere. And I knew, I'm supposed to be standing up in my cell at 4 o'clock. They're going to come around and count. You have to stand there, and you stand there, and you be quiet. And the only time the dorm or the unit was quiet. Because every time, most people, they think of prison, they think, oh, you're isolated and it's quiet. I prayed for isolation. It was constant noise and banging and screaming and hollering. But yeah, that was the only time the unit was quiet. And I, just 10, 15 minutes beforehand, you always feel like, okay, we got to hurry up. I got to hurry up. I got to get my cell. You didn't want to be caught outside your cell. Now, I was in the medium at one point. They had a door. So obviously, there's lockdown, but I was also in a open bay, and you just basically just had to be in your cell. You just run there and you go there. But I felt like that for over a year. And I kept thinking they're going to realize they made a mistake. Like they're going to come get me. Oh, I mean, a lot of the same things you're talking about, like even, dating someone, it's, they feel uncomfortable around you. It's an issue,
Sure. And then on my end of it, really not knowing how to read body language or signs, and, sometimes being dense, and then being concerned, well, I'm going to miss a sign and it's going to be a miscommunication. But then also thinking, like, I didn't have some fear, like I thought that somebody was going to say that, I tried to rape them or something like that. It wasn't that. But I did have the fear. I did have the concern that somebody was going to say, well, he made me feel uncomfortable. So
right.
that I did have. And so, there were many times where I kind of kicked myself in the pants. Well, I was attracted to this person or that person, but I never said anything, and I never asked them, didn't ask them out. I didn't try to get a phone number, and, approach dynamics were, in different settings was all, a challenge. And, it's really just like a short 3 questions, right? Well, what do you do? And, how'd you get into that? And then the whole damn thing is out on the table. But on the other hand, a couple of times I did go the opposite route, and, I just didn't say anything. But, as we're going to unfold in the story, I mean, I was an advocate, and, ultimately I become an attorney and a civil rights advocate, on behalf of the wrongfully convicted with a nonprofit. We're going to get into all that in a few. But for now, my point I want to make is when I did go the other route and I didn't say anything about anything, I can't really talk about what I do because of those 3 questions. But then when I don't at all, nothing, it almost felt like I was living like a double life, though, because that's my advocacy work now is such an integral part of who I am and what my life is. So I experienced it that way.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
you really have to address it. You just have to address it pretty much up front, even though you're going to lose a few.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. That's true. I agree.
So, but I'm sorry. So now you had said you had gotten a scholarship.
Yeah, I got a scholarship from Mercy College, so that allowed me to finish the bachelor's degree. They allowed me to live on campus, so I avoided the homeless shelter that way. They gave me the meal plan, so I could eat. So all those difficulties, but I'm on the campus. I'm finishing the bachelor's degree. I began an advocacy career, which had the elements of speaking, up and down New York, across the country. I was making some money doing that. I was the weekly columnist, as I mentioned, so I'm writing. I figured out how to keep the media coverage going. As long as there's some new angle or something new, I can keep that going rather than the normal 5 minutes of fame that then disappears. So I'm doing regular television, radio, print media interviews, ultimately new media when that becomes a thing. So I'm trading privacy for awareness. And I got introduced to meeting with elected officials. So I'm regularly meeting with them, urging them to pass wrongful conviction prevention policy, new laws, basically.
Right.
So I did that for 5 years. I didn't get into law school. And then I decided to get a master's degree. I thought having the additional credential would make me a more effective advocate. So I wound up getting a master's degree from the John Jay College of Criminal Justice. My thesis was written on wrongful conviction causes and reform. My thesis was written on wrongful conviction causes and reform. I figured that the extra credential would make me a more effective advocate. And then I got some financial compensation. New York State, you can get compensation from the state and then also file a federal civil rights lawsuit against the entities that were responsible. So I got financially compensated, and I decided that I wanted to go to the next level. I wanted to continue the advocacy work I was doing as an individual, but I wanted to do it from a nonprofit perspective and be able to be involved in helping to free people. So I used some of the money. I used a lot of money, not all of it, but a nice portion of it, to start the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice. And we've been able to help free now from when we opened our doors in 2011 until now. We've been able to free 13 people, and we've been able to help pass 3 laws, and then another 6 as part of a national coalition group. And at some point, I became not satisfied with sitting in the front row of the courtroom. I wanted to be able to sit at the defense table and represent some of the clients, make some of the arguments. So I recently had my first success as a lawyer. I helped to overturn Andre Brown's conviction as co-counsel. He was in for 23 years. Overall, the organization, we currently have 13 active cases, and there's another 5 that are approved but waiting. And so now I continue the same work, but I do have a caseload. I do have people that I'm working on, and the case I'm working on, and we're doing policy work in New York, in Pennsylvania, California. Pennsylvania is one of 12 states that does not compensate wrongfully convicted people. So that's a border state to New York. So the foundation, through our coalition, It Could Happen to You, which I'm an advisory board member of, and the foundation's part of, we're working on trying to pass exoneration compensation. In New York, we did pass the country's first oversight commission for prosecutors, or the Commission of Prosecutor Conduct. And, we're working on some other bills in New York. We hope to improve our discovery laws that pertain to sharing information between the defense and the prosecution. So it went from being one of the worst states in terms of discovery to one of the better ones. I'm working on a number of bills that would prevent wrongful conviction by coerced false confessions. So firstly, I want to mention that coerced false confessions have caused wrongful convictions in 29% of the DNA-proven wrongful convictions, with particularly vulnerable populations, people have mental health issues and youth. So there's a bill called the Youth Interrogation Act, which the foundation is active with coalition partners trying to pass, which would give a mandatory right to counsel for 16, 17-year-olds and kids younger than that, saying that they would have to consult with the lawyer to explain their rights before they would be in position to then make an intelligent decision about whether they were going to waive them or not. There is a general law in New York that says that custodial interrogations are supposed to be videotaped, but when that law was passed, it made exceptions for homicide, sex offenses, and drug cases. So we're trying to get rid of those exceptions. Like you suggest, what's the point in that? That's the cases we need it the most, right?
Right.
And then there's what's called a police deception bill, which recognizes, if passed, it would recognize that the police lying to suspects in the course of interrogation, that's inherently coercive. So it would ban the cops from lying in interrogations. So those are the primary bills that we're working on. Trying to pass we just passed, and we're waiting for trying to get the governor to sign the Challenging Wrongful Convictions Act. So in my story, I mentioned that I wrote letters for 4 years, trying to get someone to take the case. So that's because the defendants don't have a right to counsel and post-conviction proceedings. So this would give people and indigent defendants a right to counsel. And a weird quirk in New York law is if someone pleads guilty, but then after that you get a good attorney, an investigator, and you find some evidence of innocence, the courts will not allow you to argue that you're innocent. You would be limited to just arguing that evidence proves that the attorney was ineffective for not investigating. So we're saying that we want the court to consider the evidence.
Right.
Also, that's legislation in New York. I mentioned a compensation effort in Pennsylvania. In California, we are working on passing the Commission on Prosecutor Conduct, which would, the same bill that we passed, like in New York, just, tailored a little bit according to the California state constitution. So those are the campaigns we're involved in. There is a documentary short called Conviction, which is available on Amazon Prime, which is about my life post exoneration and my advocacy work, with a larger feature supposed to due to be released later this year, but that would be a documentary. But I'm still hoping to find a literary agent to get a book published by a major publishing company, and ultimately have like a movie and have my story released in other art forms. It would be, far lesser stories have been told, say, in musicals or one-man show, or I'd like to have my story in as many different iterations, just as a cautionary tale, and just to raise awareness about wrongful conviction and, the deficiencies in the justice system that lead to wrongful convictions, with the hope that dialogue would spur on some legislative changes and of course to increase the profile of my organization. We're always trying to, the bane in the nonprofit world is trying to raise money, and while we have gotten the 13 people home and we're working on 13 other cases, there's also 5 cases that we have that are approved but are just waiting. We don't have the bandwidth to move them as currently constructed. We really need to raise more money so we can bring in other lawyers and investigators, other essential personnel. My ultimate goal would be to have a chapter of the foundation, like in each state and ultimately in each country, because I really see this as a worldwide issue. And I think that in countries where we don't hear about wrongful conviction, it's not that the wrongful convictions aren't happening. It's that the injustices are not being undone. Nobody is working on them. The courts are not overturning the cases. So yeah, this is what my life's about. I make sense of what happened to me in this kaleidoscopic way. Like I found my purpose, in other words, and this is what it is.
Yeah, you've turned it. You've definitely turned a life-altering, massive injustice into a crusade.
Right.
Which maybe that's why it happened.
I believe that it is. No, I believe that it is, and with that, I have an acceptance. I have an inner peace, a higher sense of purpose. And I'm not an angry person. I want to enjoy my life as much as I can, and I can't do that. If I'm an angry or bitter person, and if I was to be angry or bitter, I not like I would be impacting any of the people that were involved. I'd be the only loser in that scenario.
I was going to say, it's not going to get you anywhere. It's, it's the whole concept of, drinking the poison, hoping it kills the other guy. It's just, silly. So yeah, you're absolutely going about it the right way. I was going to say, the book, have you written a manuscript? Have you written?
Yes, I have. Well, so I've written a book. It's 95% done. It has another 5% to go. But what would be added, would just be some strategic content. So it really would be about adding to my adventures or things I've done and accomplished since I've been released. A significant amount of things have happened since the last time I, was working on it. But I'm all the way out, and certain things have happened. But I have to add other things like graduating, going to law school, graduating law school, my first client, some of the bills we passed, other cases that have been won. That's what would have to be added. But, there's a lot of exoneration books out there, and I try to reflect on myself, the world around me, and other people, and try to draw themes and, benefit from experience. They always say hindsight's 20/20, but at the same time, whoever can look at what has already happened and then draw lessons to have, to get around those things going forward, I mean, you're that much better off. So there's a lot of exoneration books out there that really haven't made a ripple. They really haven't been read. They don't make a bestseller list. And that's because the people ran to a smaller publishing company or at least one instance, self-published. So I have a lot of things on my plate. I work maybe 50 or 60 hours a week. I don't get paid for this. I have the compensation invested in some conservative investments. So that pays me, that serves in lieu of a salary that allows me to focus my time on this. And so between working on cases, working on legislation, meeting with potential donors, strategizing over things, and some of the other stuff associated with running a nonprofit, and then I speak, and then sometimes there's training sessions, whether I'm in front of judges or prosecutors or defense lawyers, or sometimes even law enforcement. I don't want to add, why don't I figure out how to set up book tours and do the press around that and get book signing and shelf space. Okay, I want to import that and let somebody else do that, and I want it to be from a major publishing company. Otherwise, it's just going to go, I have one story to sell, right? And
right.
I don't want to waste it. I really want it to make an impact. And the general order, not always, but the general order is that the book does well, then there's a movie possibility. But if the book bombs, you're probably not going to get a movie done out of it. So I would rather sit and wait until the right agent and ultimately the right offer comes out, and that it's marketed properly and it can be the big splash that I'm looking for. I'd rather wait for the right offer than to just run to the first thing that comes along and nobody ever reads it, and none of those other dreams come true.
For as far as a bestseller is concerned, you're right. You probably have more of a chance, but doesn't mean you don't have a chance if it's not a bestseller. But and I was gonna say you definitely need a literary agent, obviously. You're still waiting for that.
I'm waiting for that. I went through two of them already. So I went through one person, and I thought that was the guy. And it's the old story of, you want to be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish, in a huge pond, right? And unfortunately, I was a small fish in a huge pond, and there's only so many hours in a day. And so although he wanted to push me, he spent his time on clients that would yield much more money. And so that didn't work out. And then I had a different literary agent after that. And I think the climate was different then. I wasn't a lawyer then either. And I think the winds of justice reform and wrongful conviction that are blowing rather strong now weren't as much then. I mean, at that time, I feel like the mass incarceration movement kind of sucked all the oxygen out of the room. And that was what the craze was, not wrongful conviction. And so the publishing companies, weren't interested at that point. But I think it could be different now. I just have to find the right person. I did meet with somebody. I'll tell you a quick big net, laugh a little bit at life to not go crazy. So it started out, this guy was supposed to represent me as my literary agent. And it went from that he connected me with a former client of his who had written a bestseller, and then it turned out he wanted that guy and him to get the money, and I wouldn't have gotten anything, and it would have just been for the exposure, and then try to recoup something on the back end through the movie, and that just simply didn't make any. Are you working for him? Are you working for me? It's my story. You've got this thing backwards.
Well, your story, you have it written. You weren't asking them to write the story. Like, I can understand them getting a chunk of it if they wrote the story, but you've written you're saying 95% done. Like,
yeah, right, exactly.
It's not like you can't write. You were writing a column, once a week.
Yeah, for 5 years. Yeah, for five, and I've had more than 200 articles in print, and I've been published in 9 different publications. So yes, I do know how to write. Yeah, so that was, so that's where that went. But look, I'm waiting to find the right person. And I think also when the book comes out, other opportunities open up. So I'd love to have a speakers bureau represent me. But if you don't have a book, they don't want to touch you. I had one entity that agreed to take me on anyway, but what they promised me, they didn't deliver. They promised that they were going to proactively seek out speaking engagements and be into a higher honorarium level, and instead all they did was manage offers that came in, and I really didn't.
Right. I have the same problem. I have the exact same problem.
So I got a lot away from them, but I think I could go back to, if I had a book that was doing well, I think that's a game changer. And somehow or another, I really would like to get into motivational speaking, because, I could never give up, where the back end of the story would not be about systemic deficiencies that lead to wrongful convictions, but it would be maybe life lessons and inspirational, never give up. And I could share the formula I came up with for, making a difference. And it would be that. But I feel like I need more infrastructure. Like, I haven't met the right person or people yet to open those, doors for me, because, I can't be a master of everything. But the idea would be, in speaking, whether it's motivational or otherwise, the idea would be that it would be a sideline, that it would be a minor income stream for the foundation towards, expanding our capacity. How many more additional innocent people could we work on trying to bring home? How many other places can we, pursue policy initiatives aimed at preventing this? And that kind of ties into my biggest challenge, which is, I didn't arrive at the socioeconomic position that I'm in now. I mean, I kind of arrived there artificially, somewhat, just by means of the lawsuit, rather than coming up in business 10, 20, 30, 40 years, or I came upon that one life-changing idea that then, boom, so I don't have this cachet of people that I know, that I have credibility with, that I can go back to, and, they fund the organization. So I really need third parties who can function as connectors, just so I can get in conversations with people and entities of capacity. And it's a soft sell. Look, here's who I am. Here's my credentials. Here's what the organization's mission is. Here's our track record. Here's what we could accomplish, if we did get the funding, the metrics that we could hit. And is this something that speaks to you, or is it not? And if not, thank you for your time. But I need help to get into those type of conversations. And it's really not about me. It's really about other people. Like, I'm free. I'm a lawyer. I know the system, and I have finances. So I doubt very seriously I would ever be, wrongfully convicted again. So it's not really about me. It's about the other people, the men and women that I metaphorically left behind, not just in New York, but everywhere. So the more we could raise, the more that we could work on freeing people. So that's really the biggest challenge, is for that. So, or maybe some of the people that are listening, they can reach me. There's a web form on the website, www.deskovic.org. We have the Patreon campaign. So that's, politicians of both parties can raise tens of millions, hundreds of millions of what they refer to as small dollar donors. Why not money to free innocent people? Dream for a second with me here. What if 25,000 people were willing to sacrifice $3 to $5 on a recurring monthly basis? I mean, that would give us close to $1 million. Could you imagine what we could how many people we could work on trying to bring home, with that, or people that work at corporations that do corporate philanthropy. I mean, just to, put a bee in someone's bonnet, hey, consider them, so that's really what I need, that, or people that can help in one way or another. But all that being separate and distinct from people and entities that aren't looking to help the mission, but instead simply want to do business or want to sell me a product or sell me, a service. I'm really not interested in that. I don't like equations where, a service provider, their money's guaranteed and everyone else is speculative. I let people sit at the same side of the table as me, and we rise or fall together. Because look, I've been burned a few times, in terms of trying to raise money. So I mean, I've learned from that. But yeah, that's really what it's about. Trying to be able to not have this waiting list of people and expand that type of thing. But last point on that, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but all the money would go definitely to the mission. None of it would make its way into my pocket under any rationale, under any theory. This doesn't gain money. I've actually put money into it, but I'm happy because I earn money other ways. Whether it's investments or when people are exonerated as a lawyer, I can help them on compensation on the back end part. I have my ways that I can earn personally. It's not through this organization.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things prison teaches you is that money is not going to make you happy.
No, it's definitely not. And just the social side of it. Just putting my life together on the social level. Just to have people, hey, you free? I'm free. Not literally, are you free?
Yeah.
But yeah, listen, I'm gonna come over, man. We'll just go ride bikes, man. The carnival's in town, man. I want to hit up the bumper cars, or let's play. Get the boys together. Let's play some basketball, or kickball, or stuff to play a game with chess, or let's go to a sporting event. But just trying to build a social part of my life, the friendship side of the equation, and the romantic side of the equation. That's the part that I've found has been the most challenging and the most frustrating, to be frank with you, because in some ways I feel like I'm still paying for the wrongful conviction even now to this
right.
To this second, because I haven't been able to put the social side of the equation really together. My life was pretty well positioned socially before the social train got knocked off the tracks. I mentioned I was one of the main kids out of a lot of them, and it would do all kind of kid-like things. And, I miss that, but when you're not starting with any human assets, where do you start? If you're an immigrant and you come from another country, Spanish people find Spanish enclaves, and the Italians, right. And the Chinatown, or you name the Russians, you name it, right? They go to a certain area. I call it theory of one person, right? Coining my own term. Okay, you find one person, and that person brings you around to that community. Now you met everybody. Now, some of the people take a liking to you, not everybody. A few people do. And then they lead you to even more people. And then you're right.
Listen, I understand.
Where's my peers at? Where's my version of that to find, though?
I hear you. Listen, I have no friends that I didn't meet in prison. I don't know if you know this. I was incarcerated for 13 years. Guilty, absolutely guilty of every one of the charges. But all my current friends are guys that I knew from prison. Because you're right. Even if you meet somebody and they're nice and they're friendly and everything else, you're right. They don't invite you out. You make them feel uncomfortable. I get it. You don't feel comfortable. That's fine. I'm not begging you to come around me. But you're right. All my friends I met in prison, they eventually get out. I kept in touch with them. They get out. We hang out. We help each other. We support each other. But yeah, you're right. No, there's no new friends. I don't know any normal people. So I understand what you're saying. it's tough. Yeah, and I made an effort. When I first got out, I made a genuine effort. Didn't happen. You know?
Yeah.
I have one friend, but he actually lives in another state. So we're more text friends. You know, you text each other once a day, or you send a TikTok, you know,
Right.
like we don't hang out.
Right. And then, yeah, I mean, that's, I can relate. And then the other challenge I've noticed, because, you know, I do know a number of other people that were exonerated, a few of which I knew were, when we were both wrongfully in prison, a much bigger population of exonerees that I did not know on the inside. And, you know, I do know quite a bit of people committed to a crime-free life, guilty before, but on parole, doing the right thing now. Some of whom I knew on the inside. But I've made this observation that I feel like in some ways I'm a subset of a subset, meaning that I was like 16 when I was arrested and in for 17 to 32. I mean, that's a lot different than someone's life is interrupted at 21 or 25 or 30, you know, in that we don't necessarily have the same hobbies. Like most people, they're not still looking to get out of the basketball court or, you know, ride a bike or go to the bumper cars or, you know, explore this aspect of the world or another. I mean, we can get together, we can shoot the breeze, you know, maybe we could play a game of chess. But even if it becomes limited, I would like to find people that you share 3, 4, maybe 5 different things, so we can change genres of activities and, you know, see what the world is about, going here or going there. But, you know, a lot of people also are frankly struggling a lot, you know, on the income level, on the job level. You know, I was that way for about 5 years, but, you know, my reality has changed. But, you know, it's tiring sometimes where if Jeff doesn't pay for everything, then nobody can go anywhere, do anything. And that, you know, so I found that sometimes becomes somewhat of an obstacle. So really across the board, I'm neither fish nor fowl. What do I?
Well, you know, I was even going to say, even the things that you have in common, going to law school, going to college. When you went to college, you weren't 20 years old. You didn't have the same college experience that other people did at 20, 21, 19, 23. You know, maybe if they're dated, 25 when they graduated. You didn't go to college until you were in your 30s.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Law school, same thing.
Exactly. And everybody there was much younger, and their idea of being friendly was just saying, "Hi, Jeff, how was your week? All right, see you tomorrow, Jeff." I mean, it wasn't like I was like hanging out with people and socializing with them, you know? So, I mean, I feel there's still the dichotomy also. Like I feel I'm 49. Right. But I feel like I'm 26, but not in this fountain of youth chasing now I've found type of joyish way.
Right.
More of a dichotomy, you know, where I have all this energy, but the things that I want to do are not really things that like a 49-year-old is going to do, want to do. But now you got to go, you know, younger. But then the more you do, the less in common, because, you know, number one, it's not really peer-to-peer anymore. There's not the same maturity level. Like I like things like right place, right time, right people in the right setting. We can let our hair down to a certain extent, right? But I understand how one thing can lead to another. It snowballs, and now there's a big consequence. But people like younger, much, you know, like in their 20s, they don't necessarily think about that, how something can snowball. It's like going back to prison, right? There were a lot of people I avoided. I could see like a metaphorical storm cloud above their head, where it was clear they were going to self-destruct.
Right.
The main thing was to make sure that they didn't manage to bring me down with them. So I kept my distance and careful and thinking for other people. But someone in their 20s or even their young 30s is not necessarily thinking in that way either.
Yeah. I agree. I can definitely talk to people and start to play out how things are going to go down for them. when most people don't think that way. Because in prison, you have to think that long term. Is this someone I need to be around because he's got a week to 6 months before he gets stabbed or gets in trouble? Or do I want to be around him? Do I want to be associated with him? It's kind of like the when two guys get into a fight in prison, you walk away. Everybody walks away. You don't stand around and watch it, because when the guards show up, they're going to grab both of them and 5 or 10 of the guys that are standing around them.
Yes.
You walk away. In high school, you stand around and watch the fight. You know, it's people, there's all these little things that people don't understand how you behave, you know. I was going to say, as far as, the funding is concerned, we can put, make sure to put all of your links to the Patreon in the description box for you. As far as
help share that too from their social media. Once they see it, where do you put it? That would be really helpful.
Yeah, that would. Okay, so so you broke up for a second there. What was it again? You want?
Yeah, I was just
social media?
What I was saying. What I was saying is, when people see the link from when you put it in, people can share that on their social media and word of mouth, so they can help move things around that way. Also,
right. Listen, I have a Patreon, and I mean, look, like $10 helps. People think, oh, well, I don't really have anything. Well, I'd like to, but listen, I'm not asking for $400 a month. $10, $9, $9.99. Sign up for. Nice thing about Patreon, you can sign up for $3. Like right. If it's $50, that's great. If it's $10, it adds up. Right. You know what I mean? And so I'm extremely appreciative of anybody that can contribute in any way, especially because they don't have to. Right. They don't owe me anything. So, right. And they don't owe you anything, but if it's a good cause, then, throw a little bit of money that way if you can.
Sure. People, last year there were maybe, I want to say, like 5 to 10 people that, they did, Facebook birthday party things. Well, for my birthday this year, I'm trying to raise this much for this entity. A bunch of people did that for the foundation. We, wound up getting some checks. That's another way of doing that. Or look, if you know somebody that does a podcast, or does Blog Talk Radio, or does a blog, or they do reporting of one kind or another, definitely have a mention, because I don't gauge the show size and decide if I'm going to go on or not. I go on because they might just one person. I might just reach one person that's a key person that could help in one way or another, or maybe it's just one person that it enlightens, or one way. You never know who may go into a mission and doing something really positive, and they felt inspired by one thing or another. Speaking of which, if there's any future lawyers listening, I like I always say in person, I do encourage people to take on one wrongful conviction case pro bono in the course of your career. But going back to prison for just a second, in the documentary short on Amazon Prime, Conviction is called, about me. I used some of the platform that the director and producer Chia Wirtz gave me to bring some attention to some of the non-innocence justice reform work, right? My rationale is, look, the fact that it's about me means that wrongful conviction, false accusation is automatically going to get some play, just automatically, because it's about me. But I used some of that to bring attention to many things I either was personally affected by in prison, or that I witnessed, which indirectly impacts me. I mean, I talked about things like, mass incarceration. I mean, there were people in prison that were doing 20 and 30 years for, just drug possession. I mean, they weren't some big time drug kingpin, but they had a quantity of drugs that made it a felony rather than a slightly lesser amount that was misdemeanor. And they had those type of sentences, which was more time than people that had done burglaries, robberies, or arsons, or even murder. And so over sentencing and nonviolent offenders, so mass incarceration, and I talked about the terrible medical care in prison. So the prison where I was at, Elmira, they had one of the highest inmate mortality rates in New York State, and how the medical staff, their answer to everything was to give over-the-counter medication and come back, and then it would take a month or two. Right. But it would take a month, and that's just to see the nurse, by the way. That's not the doctor. The doctor, that's like a month or two, but the medical care and, how just the bureaucracy involved with compassionate release, which is when prison medical staff determine that a prisoner is terminally ill. And so the idea is you put in an application so that somebody can, die with some dignity in a normal environment, surrounded by friends or family, rather than by yourself in a prison setting. And that how by the time a lot of the decisions came down, I mean, people had like 1 or 2 days left, or they already died before the decision actually came down, and and how there really wasn't any real effort on the part of the prison administration to reduce the prisoner violence, or to try to professionalize the correction officers, the verbal abuse, the level of verbal abuse that and abuse of authority that then went on, and there really wasn't any serious effort, not even a pretense of staying at trying to reel that in. And how if we really were serious about crime prevention, the curriculum and the vocational trades, I completed 6 certificates in plumbing, but nearly all the training was on cast iron pipe and metal pipe. So now it's PVC and copper. So if I decided that I wanted that career, I would start at virtually the same place out here as I would, having never received the training in there. And so I, just updating curriculum and making sure the professors actually, the instructors actually teach, rather than just being there for a, for a paycheck. So all these issues I kind of raged about in a dignified way, but tried to bring attention. The punishment for crimes, and I feel strongly about this, the punishment for crimes is supposed to be the loss of your freedom. It's not supposed to be mistreated while you're there.
Right.
And I feel that the U.S. prison system misses that mark, and just proportionality. When you look in the South in particular, and the types of time they give out for various offenses, it's crazy the amount of time that's given out for different offenses. I think there's something to be said for proportionality and fairness. It's not about coddling criminals, but it is about fairness.
Right.
I think it's supposed to be about fairness.
Yeah. No, I agree. I love
looking at any of those issues, or any thoughts on any of those different issues, in parole reform and food just being not not burned or not under being undercooked. Yeah.
Well, we used to always joke the leading cause of death at the prison I was at, it was Coleman. We used to say the leading cause of death here is medical. I can't tell you how many guys that went in for there were clear problems, and they were dead, 2 weeks later. It was clear the guy's got he's got heart pain. He goes in 3 times. They say, come back on Monday, come back on this. Oh, you just got indigestion. Oh, you'll be fine. Oh, come back Monday. Boom, he dies right then. He went in 3 times. I have a buddy who had self-diagnosed himself as having a hernia. They said, you've got an ulcer. Don't eat these foods. Stop eating these foods. Because I didn't eat one food that was on that list. Sure enough, eventually he complained so much. Eventually they came back, sent him out for like whatever it is, the scan to see if he had what was wrong with him. He had 2 ulcers, but they wouldn't give him the report. They told him that they found nothing. He eventually got his mother to get a copy of the report, showed 2 ulcers. But they were telling him, nope, you have an ulcer. I'm sorry, it showed 2 hernias. They were telling him it's an ulcer. He finally got the report. when he got the report, then his mother, of course, contacted the governor's office. They immediately called the prison. Now suddenly they were like, oh, we're going to give you the surgery. Of course we were. What are you talking about? We never said that. I mean, they're just, they're scumbags. But I understand exactly what you're saying. It's the whole giving some guy 15 years for selling, a crack rock. I mean, a crack rock, because he had a gun in his house. He sold it 3 miles away, but he had a gun in his house, sold a crack rock, got 15 years. Why? Because, oh, well, yeah, but he's been arrested for selling crack before. 15 years? So, I mean, listen, we could go back and forth and back and forth. I'll bitch and complain the entire time, but I'm just not in a position to do anything but bitch and complain. You're luckily you're in a better position. So I was going to say, definitely anybody watching should, go in the description and click the link and donate. If it's $10 or $5 or $50 or whatever it may be, a one-time donation, or even just sign up. To me, signing up is better because $10 a month isn't going to bother me at all. Giving, $100 once, I'd rather have the $10 every month for 2 years than the $100 once. I know and it hurts less. Do you have anything else you want to say, or?
Set a goal, have a realistic plan of getting there. In other words, you should be able to look at your plan 3 or 4 different ways and say to yourself, well, yeah, I could see how that might work. Be flexible. Remember that, the plan is the plan. The plan is not the goal. So you be flexible. Don't be afraid of hard work. I don't believe in the pie in the sky type thing where everything's going to be okay just because. I instead believe in rolling up your sleeves, working really, really hard to put yourself in a position for a miracle to happen or a door to open. And there are no excuses why something can't be done. I mean, maybe there's reasons why something will be harder, but no excuses why something can't be done. And lastly, never ever give up. And once you make it, you have to reach back and try to bring someone else across that. So that's not limited to wrongful conviction. I mean, I've seen homicide victim family members, be involved in advocacy and reach out to other people in that same position, whether it's someone who's a victim of domestic abuse that's gotten out, survived and rebuilt their life and reaching back to other people, or, whether it's someone that's been sexually trafficked or someone that's faced racism or discrimination or some other type of calamity of greater or lesser, that I think is the formula for making the world a little bit better, making your suffering count for something, and, having some inner peace, and it'll be cathartic and healing, and it'll be